Don't send that application just yet. You heard me right. Before you click submit on your next job application, I need you to know something that your career counselor probably never told you. Right now, in 2026, 87% of companies are using artificial intelligence somewhere in their hiring process. And amongst Fortune 500 companies, those are the biggest employers on the planet, that number is 99%. So you heard me right. That's between 87 to 99% of all companies are using AI. That means there is a very high chance that the first person or thing to look at your application is not a person at all. And here's the real question. Does that scare you or does that excite you? Because by the end of this hour, it's definitely going to excite you. I know some people are worried about the AI takeover, but trust me, it can be a tool that's used for good and used to help you. So let's learn how we take advantage of it and how we get AI on your side of the table. And thanks for being here. So, welcome to the Vitality Social Network. I'm Melanie, and tonight we're kicking off a 5-part series called AI in Your Career. So, here's what this series is going to cover. Episode 1 tonight is all about finding the right job with AI. Episode 2 is resume building and ATS, or the applicant tracking system automation. Episode 3 is cover letters that don't sound robotic. And episode 4 is for AI practice interviews. And then lastly, episode 5 is all about negotiating your offer with AI as your research partner. Let me paint you a picture of what the job market actually looks like right now, because I think some of these numbers are actually going to surprise you. The average job search in 2026 takes 6 months. You heard me right, 6 months. And the share of people job hunting for 6 months or longer has increased by more than 50% over the past 2 years. Long. Because if you're one of those people that's job hunting and it's taking you 6 months to find a job, time is getting away from us. That's money that you could be making, right? And the job market is currently being flooded with competition. There are a lot of people that are also applying for jobs. And so these AI tools help the hiring manager to review these jobs in mass quantities. So the first person to see your job or your application for that job is probably not a person at all. And really, the approach of looking at jobs one by one really just doesn't work anymore. And we need to consider a new way of going about applying for jobs called the 3-filter problem. So every single job application that you submit in 2026 has to pass through 3 filters before a human being ever sees your name. That's 3 filters. Filter 1 is the ATS. That's the applicant tracking system. This is the software that most companies use to collect and to sort their applications. About 90% of employers use automated systems to filter or rank their applications. The ATS is not smart. It's not judging you. It's literally scanning for keywords. If your resume does not contain the right words from the job description, you get filtered out automatically before any human sees your name. So filter 2 is the AI sourcing layer. Beyond the ATS, many companies now have AI tools actively scanning LinkedIn, GitHub, portfolios, Indeed, etc., any other public platforms that it can look for to find and source and view candidates. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the live demo and share my screen. I want you to watch what I do, and you can follow along on your own device or computer if you have it. So you should be able to see my ChatGPT now. First thing is I'm going to switch it from auto to thinking. I prefer that I have a longer, better, more thorough answer, that they took more time to research before they respond to me. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and enter in our prompt. So the first prompt is called the role discovery prompt. Here's what you're going to type. something like, let's see, I want to apply for positions in the wellness field because I went to school for nutrition and dietetics. So tell me let's say, provide me with the top 10 job titles I should search for. Oh, okay, so I'm typing quick, multitasking. You can see there's a couple typos. Doesn't matter. It's a great thing about AI, right? It'll fix it. So, including emerging roles in 2026. The next thing that we're going to look for are the skills and the qualifications most commonly required. Number 3 are the soft skills that employers value most. So, one thing is like, okay, tech skills, like I'm able to use Microsoft Word, I'm able to use Excel, I'm able to prescribe a meal plan. Soft skills are like some of those, I'm reliable, I'm personable, I'm friendly, I'm good at communicating, those kind of things. And then 4 are hidden job titles that have less competition. That's key. Less competition, but the same skill set. So again, back to the beginning, it took us about 6 months to find a job right now. So we might need to think outside of the box with, what exactly job titles do I need to search in Indeed? What are some additional jobs that maybe are outside of the box that I hadn't considered? And that'll let me have more options for what I'm looking for. And then this last one, of course, more options that maybe are a little less competitive. So let's see what we have. In just 30 seconds, we went from I want to work in the wellness field to now I have a specific list of hopefully 10 roles that I can consider applying for with varying levels of competition. This is what strategic job searching actually looks like in 2026. Now, we also have the ability to say, based on this list, suggest 5 alternative job titles or industries where my skills would be valuable but less competitive. So let's consider where AI is creating new demand, not eliminating. First, let's see what we have here. So top 10 job titles. It's also considering me as a person. So I use ChatGPT a lot, and so it learns about me. Oops, I'm not sure what I clicked here. Okay, so yeah, it learns a little bit about me, and it's able to remember my history, my skill set, my previous resumes. So it knows that I have a background in a nutrition degree, I have clinic operations leadership, client education, community building, and it's searching for things like wellness program manager, health promotion program manager, learning and development manager. And this is an example of one that could apply to anything, even if it's not in the health and wellness field. Community health program manager, so maybe this looks like working specifically for the government, creating, you can see here like nonprofits or community health centers, creating programs for the community to come join. It says here community health worker employment is actually projected to grow 11% over the next decade, much faster than the average occupation. So this could be a place to look and consider how we can help more people in the community. Patient engagement program manager, clinic operations manager, digital health implementation manager. So this is an emerging 2026 role. So it highlighted that specifically. Digital health companies need more people that can help. And so this is where you're also going to be able to find more remote work specifically on like the telehealth platforms. AI-enabled healthcare tools that need managers to oversee those processes. People think right now that AI is going to replace real people, and not necessarily, but a real person that uses AI is definitely going to replace somebody that does not use AI as we move forward. So here are just, like I said, a few examples of some creative jobs as well. Director of Healthy Living or Wellness Services, I love that. Thanks, Ruby. Thanks for being here. And then here we have the skills and qualifications that are most commonly required. So this is really detailed. It's going to help me understand exactly what I need to know how to do in order to be required for these jobs. And so, I'm just going to be honest here. It's a lot to read, right? So what would be really helpful is to know how well do I actually, does my skill set actually apply to these jobs. And so it can do a job fit analysis for us as well. So we're going to move into trying that prompt as well. This is probably one of the most underused tactics in job searching right now. And here's how it works. You can actually copy and paste a real job description, or you can use the example that's listed here. Earlier, I copied and pasted a role for a senior station leader at Amazon because there is a really large Amazon facility that's opening up within a 50-mile radius of me. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm really good at operations leadership. Maybe I can branch outside of the health and wellness field where a lot of my credentials really fall and apply those operation skills to another operations centered job. So I just copied and pasted that job. And now we also want to see here that, look, I would be thrilled if I got to get this job that made over $130,000 annually. That would be crazy. So I need ChatGPT to help me understand if I'm a good fit for this job. So at the end of it, I'm going to ask this. So analyze this job description and do 4 things. Okay, again, looks, I'm doing some typos right now. It's fine. It'll fix it. Not really a problem. Okay, so number 1, identify the top 10 keywords and phrases that I need to include in my resume. So back to the start, the ATS is going to skim your resume, and if it doesn't include these top 10 keywords, you're automatically going to be filtered out of the system. We can almost guarantee that a large company like Amazon is probably using some AI service to filter out their applicants. They receive tons and tons and tons of applicants. It's not going to be reasonable for a human to sit there and look at every single one. So this is what I need to make sure I include in my resume so that I make it through that filtering process. Number 2 is rate my overall qualifications match on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's like my job score. It's going to tell me if I'm actually likely to get this job based on my skill set. And it's likely how their ATS is probably already rating me, and it's a good chance that anybody that's like a 6 or below is not even going to make it to the next stage of being able to see a human. The next one is tell me what the job is really looking for. Like, read between the lines. The unstated priorities. Like, for example, I need somebody that takes initiative and is a self-starter and is able to lead themselves without needing to be micromanaged. That might be something that they don't say explicitly on the job application, but the hiring manager is definitely going to be looking for in this senior leader. And then lastly, identify any red flags. What kind of red flags am I going for? So that would be like concerns a smart candidate would look for. So, of course, we're talking about, the job is filtering through applications and they're deciding if we're a good fit for the job. We also have a right to decide if the job is a good fit for us. So, for example, does it seem like this job is going to overwork you, or with the level of responsibilities that it's asking for, it's not an appropriate level of pay or benefits? Those are the kind of things that you should consider. And then let's see how my score goes. Okay, so first we have the top 10 keywords and phrases. So again, these truly match my experience. So I need to make sure that I promote, I include, I make sure I tailor my resume specifically to what they are looking for in terms of the skill set. And the great thing about ChatGPT is they can also help us make that resume really easily. So this is just kind of gearing it up to the information that it knows it needs to include. And then the next step of the process, the next conversation we're going to be having tomorrow, is actually how to use this tool specifically for creating resumes. Right now, we're still just in the frame of mind of how we can find a job that is the right fit for my skill set. Now, overall qualification match. Okay, look, I have a lot of these skills. It's awesome. You would think that's like we're really proud of that, right? But then we get down here and I'm only a 4.5 out of 10. Yikes. Okay, so maybe I'm not as strong as an operations leader that can be applied to every job as I thought that I was, right? So it's going to tell me where the major gaps are as well, what I need to work on in order to be eligible or qualified for this job. And really, this is telling me, is it worth really spending my time even building that resume and applying for this job, right? I don't want to spend the next hour or so trying to custom write a resume and a cover letter when the ATS is going to filter me right out of even being eligible for this job. And so, of course, I can consider then, like I said, is it even worth applying? But the next thing would be, how can I actually turn myself into the candidate that they're looking for? So here's some examples of what I don't have on my resume. I don't have 7 years of logistics or distribution management. This says direct oversight of ops managers, area managers, shift managers. I actually do have that. I do have that, but I must have not included that on my previous resumes. So ChatGPT's automated system wasn't able to filter that out and learn that about me because I didn't explicitly provide that information. So this is how working with ChatGPT as a partner is actually really beneficial, but it shows the gaps in the technology as well. It's why it still needs a human input as well. Um, then experience operating a 24/7 delivery service specifically, going through logistics staffing. So this is really the fact that it's saying, okay, you might be an amazing operations manager, but you've never really worked in a warehouse environment like this. So it does also supply some other competitive titles that I might be more likely to get my foot in the door with. So for example, if I apply to just a slightly lower level of a job role at Amazon, maybe I'm not going to get that 150K I was looking for, but maybe one of these roles that are just under it. And then I can start gaining some of that experience and grow into this senior manager job. Now, I love this example. What is the job really looking for? This is that between the lines advice here. They are looking for a leader of leaders. So, not just a leader of employees, but I'm also able to train other managers that will then manage those employees. Someone that can set those expectations, inspect their performance, challenge weak explanations, coach struggling managers, and developing leaders. That's what I'm really passionate about. I'm also am intensely comfortable with numbers, so this is getting me really hyped up. I just need to make sure that I remember to include these specific pieces in my cover letter, in my resume, so I can demonstrate that I am actually the type of person that they're looking for. And even though I might not have experience in a warehouse type environment, I'm absolutely the type of employee that they're looking for, and I do have a lot of transferable skills. So this is how that next conversation is really going to help me to tailor my resume, and then episode 3 to really tailor my cover letter to the job that I want. And then, okay, lastly, some of the red flags. So this is making me think, do I even want this job? Again, do I really want to spend the time tailoring my resume and cover letter for this job? Because I have to be open to any location within a 50-mile radius. Does this mean that they can move me 50 miles away from my family? I'm not really sure that I want that. It also has a schedule that could be really disruptive. Am I ready to work overnight, weekends, holidays, 24/7? I'm not really sure that that would be a good fit for me. So, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. I need to make sure that I consider these red flags seriously when I'm moving forward in the application process. So, here's the honest answer, whether this claim is real or hype. What do you think? Real or hype? It's both. Yes, it's actually both. So, how you understand that difference determines whether you use the tools correctly. or you get burned by them. No AI tool today can reliably predict whether a job is going to make you happy or make you fulfilled or make you successful long term. And here's a stat that should give you pause. Only 26% of job applicants actually trust AI to evaluate them fairly. Yeah, that's pretty low, 26%. And there's a serious academic research backing up that skepticism. A 2025 peer-reviewed study in Issues in Information Systems found that most high-performing AI hiring models operate as black boxes. They make decisions but can't explain them. You get rejected, and neither you or the recruiter knows exactly why. There's also documented evidence from Stanford researchers in October 2025, so pretty recent, both of those studies, that AI resume screening tools gave older male candidates higher ratings than female candidates and younger candidates, despite identical qualifications. That's not hypothetical. So when people say, the older white male is more likely to get the job, that is based on public research. So we really have to think strategically about our process when we are trying to get a job. So that's the hype side of the quote. Now, there is a real side, and this is what changes everything. AI is genuinely excellent at 3 specific job search tasks. Keyword optimization, so it knows exactly what words are going to get past that ATS system. Company research depth, it can synthesize information that would take you hours to gather manually. And job description decoding, it finds the unstated priorities that most candidates completely miss. So use AI for those 3 things and trust your own judgment for everything else. The culture fit, the career direction, the values alignment, that is the balanced approach when you are using AI to search for jobs. It can definitely provide you a lot of information quickly, but you have to use your own intuition to decide if it is the right fit for you. And then, of course, like we saw in the example earlier, the information that you feed AI definitely makes a difference in the quality of input that it gives back to you as well. So in the next section, I'm going to show you what using AI looks like for company research. So let's go back to ChatGPT. We're going to stick to the same thread that we've already been using, so it knows what I'm working on. All right, and you can follow along with me here. And I think I'm going to stick to using the example of researching Amazon. So again, before you go into an interview, before you apply to a job, you need to know a little bit about the company that you're actually applying to, because you want to make sure it's worth your time, it's a good fit for you, and then when you have a conversation with that hiring manager, you're prepared to ask quality questions and say the right thing about why you're applying for this job, why you feel aligned with their mission, whatever it is. So we're going to ask AI to please put together an in-depth report on Amazon. Include what products or services they offer, how the company actually makes money. And then number 2 is how they are positioned in the market and their main competitors. So this will also tell me, maybe Amazon is no longer hiring. They filled that role that they were looking for, but I was actually a good fit for that job. So how can I look for other companies that are really similar that I could apply to as well? We also want to know their company culture and values. So they might be a big company and they pay a lot, but it turns out that they don't treat their people well or whatever, right? We want to know some of that information, what we can find. So that's going to bring us into the next step. Any recent reviews, let's see, and news, layoffs, funding rounds, controversies, that kind of thing, right? Anything that we should know about. And then lastly, what a candidate with my background which, as you've heard, is mostly in the wellness field, not really in this like operations logistics for a warehouse. So what would I need um, to emphasize if I actually wanted to get this job? And really, not just get the job, but how would I stand out? If I made it past the ATS tracking system, what would a hiring manager be looking for to think they would still be willing to give me a shot? We could also do intelligent interview questions that I can use to impress the senior hiring manager. So this is all about Amazon. I'm sure a lot of people are curious to know about this. As you saw earlier, I also switched my chat to the thinking mode, so it's taking a little bit longer here. It's actually searching through Indeed and Reddit and all kinds of other websites to compile really recent and effective, well-rounded information here. You're more than welcome to switch it if you want like the instant or auto results. I don't mind waiting the 20 seconds in order to get more effective and detailed information here. So let's see what we can find here. And it did consider both the Amazon company and the fact that I was looking for the job that I copied and pasted in earlier as well. So Amazon's no longer best understood as an online retailer. It's a sprawling infrastructure company whose businesses reinforce one another. So what that means is that it has multiple ways of making revenue, right? It has the retail, it has the Prime Video services, it does advertising, they sell devices. So it's really diversified at this point to beyond just what it used to be where, you buy products and you get it in 2 days and that's it, right? They make money in a lot of different ways. That being said, there are a lot of different jobs that would be available as well. So when it comes to the position that I applied for, it's not really considering the entertainment aspect of Amazon. It is considering the delivery aspect of Amazon. And my strongest interview strategy is going to be to position myself as a people-centered operations and training leader who creates repeatable systems, develops managers, diagnoses performance gaps, and translates metrics into behavior change. That could literally be like my opening statement on my resume, where you would start with like your mission or your overview statement. That would be a great way to position myself. And then those can be my talking points, my sound bites when I actually have an interview with the hiring manager. And of course, like we learned, my biggest obstacle is the scale of the job and the industry specificity of the job. I haven't worked in a warehouse type environment, so I really have to demonstrate that my experience can be transferred from the health and wellness field and multi-location operations to what we're accomplishing here at Amazon. So then we have some more information about how it makes money, just broken down in depth there. Wow, this is really, really thorough. And then it also provides some different competitors based on the business area specifically. So as we learned, Amazon has multiple ways of making money. So that means there are a lot of different types of competitors depending on what aspect of the company I was most interested in getting involved in personally. So I can see here that if I'm more interested in the digital advertising piece, maybe I go to somewhere like Google or Meta or Microsoft. If I'm more interested in the streaming aspect and the video aspect, then maybe I'm looking more at Netflix and YouTube and Disney. So if I'm sticking to logistics and I'm thinking, no, I really want to start working at a warehouse, that's the next phase of my career, whether I don't do it at Amazon or somewhere else, I want to do that. So I could look at FedEx, I could look at USPS, UPS, those kind of places would be comparable to the type of job that I was looking for. So, this is basically your list when you're considering how can I use AI to help me find a job. Here's the starting place of your list. When you're in Indeed, you can copy and paste every single one of these competitors into Indeed. It gives me a lot of options. It also helps me understand, like I said, what aspect of those businesses I want to help support. And we can also use the job titles search that we started with at the top of this conversation. Give me 10 related job titles that I can search in Indeed as well. It also shares some information about the company culture so I can decide if my values align with that or if I feel like um, maybe they don't align with that, right? So it's determining if I feel like not only they're looking at me like am I a good fit for the job, but are they a good fit for me? Are they a good fit for my life? I want to be part of a culture that I believe in and can support so that I can be happy every day. I don't want to go with a company that has poor work-life balance because I'm a new mom and I need a predictable schedule and a job that's not overly physically mentally demanding. That would be an environment where I would personally feel really stressed out in. I like to be, I liked when I can take independent initiative and decide my own schedule and still make sure I get things done. If I have to show up and work a 12-hour shift in a warehouse, I probably actually wouldn't be that happy. And then lastly, we also have some examples here of recent news for layoffs. And really, this can tell you, is the company growing or reducing? So they cut 16,000 roles as recently as January in 2026. And so this might give you an idea that this could be a time when it's a little bit harder to find a job here at Amazon. Um, Maybe they're downsizing specifically, and they're trying to be a little bit tighter with who they hire and how their operation works. Or it could be something that you just keep in mind. I might get a job here at Amazon and then they're going through their next round of layoffs. So you just want to keep that type of thing in mind, right? A lot of these companies are moving more towards using AI and automation. So the more you know how to use AI and automation as part of your skill set and bring that to the table, so it can be part of your workflow, you can be the AI processes manager, that will help you be a little bit more competitive compared to other people that are applying for the same job. And then lastly, again, you have that section where you can learn what you can emphasize about yourself in order to stand out. So this will provide you a really thorough understanding of how to succeed in your job search. Wow. Also, a lot of questions that I could possibly ask to be engaged. I remember a job interview I had one time where it was a situation where I didn't have to leave my job. I was just like being open to different opportunities. And I went and I grilled them. And I was like, how do your processes work? And, what is your schedule like? And what training support do you provide to your managers? How are you going to set me up for success? And I think I impressed them so much by having engaging questions and showing that I was taking the job seriously that then they chased me down. Honestly, there was several follow-up conversations. They ended up providing me a really competitive salary and convinced me to come work for them because they were so impressed by my passion and my dedication to learning about their company and being engaged in the job interview process. All right. So we've made it through the majority of our conversation today. Keeping in mind, this is not about just gaming the system. It's about being genuinely informed and prepared so that we can make sure that we have options. We understand what our choices for applying to different roles are. We understand more about the company that we're applying to, and we understand more about ourselves and if we're a right fit for that job, if the job's a right fit for us, and if it's not, then how do we bridge the gap? What exactly are we looking for? Again, keep in mind that sometimes AI can use outdated or inaccurate information, especially when it comes to the recent company news and things like that. So, if you are using that to prepare for your interview, just make sure you verify key facts directly before your interview so you don't start like quoting their mission statement or their number of locations or something like that before you go into that conversation. I would love if anybody has questions in the chat. Feel free to let me know and we can spend some time on a Q&A. I also have received some frequently asked questions that I can address as well while we wait for chat questions to come in. And if you happen to be watching this on the replay, feel free to still stay engaged. Let me know what type of job you're looking for, what you're struggling with, if you like to use AI in your process, because we're going to continue the conversation over the next couple of days where we learn how to build a resume, a cover letter, how to position ourselves to fight for that better salary. There's a lot of places that we can go with using AI to effectively help our job search. So one major question I have is, how do I know if the company that I'm applying to actually even uses AI to screen the applicants? Is it worth my time to consider this information? Well, you should just assume they do, because like we said off the top, anywhere from 87% to 99% of companies are currently using AI somewhere in their hiring process. So you're far more likely to be wrong by assuming that they don't use it than assuming that they do. So you should absolutely design your application for AI screening first and then make it human readable. We'll talk about in the resume building section. I think it's important to have a not just quick apply with Indeed and the built-in resume, but to actually have a personalized, professional, polished, maybe even colorful resume that stands out. Because as someone that's been an employer, I've spent time sifting through Indeed applicants, and they all look the same. So once AI actually feeds me the better people, I'm going to notice who gave me a polished resume. I'm going to notice who spent time answering my applicant questions. And I'm going to notice the ones that look a little bit different, a little bit longer, they took more time. That kind of detail will stand out once you've spent time looking at 100 applications that all look the same. So first goal is to get past that ATS system, and then think about what the human is going to see when you get there. So we'll help you with that on the next conversation. Another good question that we have here is just, what's a good AI tool to use? Maybe you're just getting started on using AI. ChatGPT is my go-to. It's a great starting place. A lot of people also use Claude or Perplexity. So those would be some of the top ones that I recommend. You can certainly use the free versions. Okay, someone asks, so is it okay to ask someone to make my CV, or should I do it myself? Okay, that's a good question. Um, I, I think it depends on what you mean by asking someone. Who is that? You are going to have the best information about yourself. You're going to know what you've accomplished, what awards you've been recognized for, what records you've broken, your soft skills. You know yourself best. But it's absolutely not cheating to also use a tool to help you make the process easier. So if you're asking someone for help and they happen to be using an AI tool like ChatGPT, then that just helps level the playing field. You have a process and technology into place that can make sure that your CV looks professional. It includes the keywords that the job you're applying to is looking for. It can help polish it up with formatting. It can prevent typos and grammatical errors. I love when somebody applies and they say, I'm detail oriented, and then I notice all kinds of errors in their resume. So it's absolutely okay to ask for help or to use one of these tools to help you set yourself, one step apart from the rest of the pack. But just make sure that AI or that person is your partner, not just completely replacing you in the process, not a ghostwriter for your actual character, because you're going to have to take your specific experience and the things that you're proud of and feed that information to that person or to AI. Did you know that the most repeated statistic in job searching is actually false? You have probably heard that 75% of resumes are automatically rejected before a human even sees them. That number actually spread from an old resume software marketing claim, not a transparent research study. Did you believe it before now? I did. I might have actually even quoted it myself. But once I dug a little bit deeper, I realized the truth about this claim, and I'm going to be sharing it with you tonight. Tonight, we're replacing that scary myth with a practical explanation of what the ATS actually does and what you can do to fix it. We're going to have a live demonstration where we can cover the 4-stage process, the ATS automatic tracking system process. We'll talk about 5 formatting rules. We'll do a live AI supported job resume rewrite. We'll also have a keyword gap analysis and 3 prompts that you can take away and use immediately with your resume creation process and job search to make sure that you're a little bit more effective. And it's not about gaming a robot or cheating the system. It's just about making your real experience readable and relevant. Sometimes it helps to have that system to support us to make our resume a little bit more polished, a little bit more effective, a little bit more tailored to the actual job that we're trying to achieve and score. So today we'll have some real examples of resumes that I've seen personally, and I'll be sharing them with you and then comparing them to a more effective resume and having AI rewrite them for us. If you're excited for tonight, or if you're applying for jobs right now, let me know in the comments what job is your dream job or how the job search has been going for you. I would love to hear from you. And if we have a chance to help you specifically by the end of the night, then I'll be happy to do that. If you're watching on the replay, then you can still comment and let us know what your goals are and what you're struggling with, and then hopefully we can incorporate that in future episodes as well. So first we're going to start with talking about how the ATS system actually works. That is the system we talked about on the last episode, where from 87 to 99% of employers are using some sort of AI automated system to read through your resumes before it even sees a human. At least that's the stat we thought. So we'll dig into that a little bit deeper, but we're going to talk about how it actually works. So first, it receives the file. So the system accepts it. There's no judgment happening yet. Oh, hey, Ruby, love to see you here. I'm excited that you're here. Thank you. Stage 2 is going to parse it. So that's when it extracts your contact details, your titles, the date ranges, your skills, your education. So any of that is going to be extracted. And I will say, though, that if you have columns, tables, graphics, text boxes, headers, that can actually cause information to be missed or misplaced during that stage of the process. So sometimes what we thought was a beautifully polished resume is actually not making it through this automated system and allowing it to see all of that good information that we included. Once it does extract the information that it can easily see, then it will score it. So it compares the parsed resume with the job description of the job you're applying for. Modern tools may understand related language, but they can't reward skills or experience that you never mention. So that's why it's really important to make sure before you're scored that you effectively include any keywords in your resume. And then lastly, it ranks you. So this is a little bit different than what we originally thought. It's not just going to reject you completely. So the danger is not instant deletion. The danger is often that it's just being misread or filtered or placed so low that a recruiter never even sees you and reaches your name because they're going through the list of those that were ranked 9 out of 10 and 8.5 out of 10. And if you're down there in the 6s or 5s just because you missed some key words that would have ranked you higher, then a human won't even see you, even if you're a perfectly qualified candidate. So the distinction really matters because the fix is clear formatting and honest job-specific alignment. So no gimmicks, you're just trying to make sure you fully give yourself credit for all the work that you've done. So again, the ATS system actually ranks candidates, and then it doesn't just delete them. So that's a slight difference than what we knew before. But it could be the case that instead of all of the resumes being automatically rejected, like the statistic we thought before, that you're just getting ranked more poorly than you deserve, probably because of your formatting or your word choices. So, we're going to talk about how we can fix that today. Yeah, Ruby, you're right. It is really hard to have a chance in the market these days. And this is actually information that I've been trying to apply to my own job search process because honestly, I feel like I have great experience and a lot of accomplishments that I'm proud of. And I apply to all these jobs related to being an operations trainer or, educator trainer in general. And I'm like, I've done the most for this. What do you mean? I'm like perfectly qualified. How come I never even got a call for an interview? And then I looked through this type of research and I realized, well, that's why. It's because, the system couldn't even read my work because I put it in this really polished PDF that was meant for a human's eye. Or maybe I just didn't tailor my resume to what that job was looking for specifically. I was, clicking on the Indeed auto apply and shooting off my application in just a minute. And I promise you that taking like 3 extra minutes to work with ChatGPT or Claude or something like that to fix up your resume can dramatically increase the chances of you getting a call back and getting an interview, getting you in front of a human eye that sees your experience. So the job market is really tough these days. So you want to stand out above the rest of the crowd, and these tips will help you do that. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about some of the simple formatting mistakes and give you some quick visuals of what that looks like. It comes a little bit more obvious to us when we can compare them side by side. So I have a couple that you can see here I'm going to share. These are based on real resumes that I've seen, and I just maybe took out some of the person's real information, but it's definitely the real formatting that I saw, and it's the real experience that I saw. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so this is Jordan Reed's resume. And initially, when I looked at this, I would think, wow, I love that it's so well organized. It's got this big blue text box that everything is inside of. And then we have here some different columns to put our key skills so we don't have to take up 2 pages of just listing our skills. But, I realized after the fact, after doing this research, that this is a resume that while it looks great to the human eye, it could very well be getting rejected by the system. So, some things that we need to consider is that this is also a PDF. So that is something that we learned in the last conversation, that the PDF is significantly more likely. So it goes from, I think, 4% on the documents to around 18% on the PDFs. It's significantly more likely to be misread or rejected from the process because it's not able to read it as effectively. Additionally, while we originally thought the layout of, putting these columns side by side and everything in the text box looked really good, the system was not actually able to extract all of the information that it needed. So the graphics, the columns, the tables, the text box, all of those things actually made it more difficult for it to read. So I'm going to show you another one. This is the same person, the same work experience. Now, it might not immediately pop for the human eye, so maybe you have both when you apply. Maybe you have the one that is meant for the system and one that is meant for the human, so it stands out. But this one you can see more clearly. It just has, a single column of all the information listed, and there's not any fancy formatting. It's a doc instead of a PDF. There's no graphics or fancy icons. It could be the case that my little bullet points here, maybe that could cause a problem. That's something to think about, but it is definitely much cleaner than the original. We also want to be careful that this information up here, the name and the contact information, it's published right in the key document, and it's not as part of the header, where you can put like the header and the footer in your documents. That information sometimes will actually get completely missed. So I used to put all of my contact information up in the header and start my document that way. But then I realized through my research that that information might not even get seen by the system. So it's more effective to figure out other ways that I can format it to save space, or maybe how I can just zone in on the experience that is critical for the machine or the human to see, rather than fluffing it up with 2 pages of my accolades and special achievements. I can go right to the information that the system is looking for as it compares to the job listing. Now, just so you know, again, like I said, these are actually real resumes I've seen for this person. We also have one where if you just look at it visually, a little bit less easier to read. Once I dug into it, I could see that there were some typos and issues like that. And so we are going to do a live demo where we have the opportunity to actually tailor a resume specifically to a real job description, and we'll be able to see how ChatGPT specifically, of course you can use any other AI system that you want, is able to take a 5-part prompt and then show us what is missing in the resume, how could we add more specific keywords to the job, how could we make the professional summary more effective, are there any other aspects that are being undersold or potentially that needs correction, because like we mentioned, there's some typos and things like that. So the win here is not necessarily changing the truth of what that person experienced, it's just making it clearer for the system to see. So that's what we're going to work on now. So first that we have here is our live prompt. This is our 5-part resume rewrite. This is actually something that you can do as well. So here's the job description. I put that below. This is an operations manager posting. It has the professional summary, key responsibilities, preferred qualifications, everything like that. I just copied and pasted from I took an example job and just tweaked it a little bit. And then I also went ahead and attached an example resume. And so ChatGPT is going to do 5 things. It's going to identify the 10 most critical keywords from the job description that are actually just completely missing from the resume. It's going to rewrite the professional summary to include the top 5 naturally. It'll rewrite the top 3 bullet points from the most recent experience of this person and that key role to better match the job language and the job description that we're actually applying to, without completely inventing experience. It's just going to make sure your experience is actually highlighted and included. It'll also tell us which section, achievement, or experience that we're underselling, and it'll do a keyword match score before and after the changes. So it'll tell us what it fixed up and why the resume it's providing to you is going to be so much more effective than the original resume that you put in. So let's go ahead and see what ChatGPT can do. All right. Wow. So if we just do a quick scan here without even having to read all of this, it did a side-by-side of the job description keyword and the recommendation, and it showed us, a lot of X's there, or caution signs. So this resume is actually missing the majority of the key points that that employer wants to see from you, even though they are probably doing all of those things. Like that's what's involved in this job that they had at a massive warehouse and shipping company, working logistics and operations on the floor. They were looking at metrics, they were focused on continuous improvement. Absolutely, safety compliance was an important part of that job, and cross functional communication or employee engagement. Those were definitely components of their job that they were responsible for years, but they're not giving themselves enough credit on the actual resume that they're submitting. We can also see how it would rewrite the professional summary here. So the current one is pretty simple. Effective at building highly motivated teams as well as cross-functional teams in a demanding environment. Oh, I can already note here that's a slight change. Leading cross-functional teams, but it doesn't mention the cross-functional communication. That's an easy switch that they could make. It's still accurate and true, but more tailored to what that job is looking for. Now, here's what ChatGPT says. So they suggested we should write for our professional summary: an operations leader with experience managing high volume distribution operations, developing engaged teams, improving productivity, and leading cross functional collaboration in a fast paced environment, skilled in workforce coordination, operational reporting, continuous improvement, driving safe and efficient daily operations. So, again, this is something that they're definitely doing, but now it's the first thing that the system or the human is going to see, that they're actually checking the box on a lot of the key words that they're looking for in that job. So they're making it more obvious. It'll also give us some examples of how they can rewrite the top 3 bullet points. So you can see here the suggested version. You can literally just copy and paste that into your resume if you'd like. It also shows off what you're underselling. So, for example, they had a bullet point that says, I ensure my area is running efficiently. And we could just be a little bit more detailed. Does that mean your area, is managing 5 people, 20 people, 100 people? Is it 1 conveyor belt or 20 conveyor belts? What does that look like? So we need to be a little bit more detailed. Similarly, this person said they make sure their employees have everything needed to be successful. But what does that really mean? Again, how many employees do they actually manage? Do they do any specific coaching, hiring, training, onboarding? Do they plan resources? Do they discuss how they can remove operational barriers? What does that really look like in their day-to-day job? So I think that this did a great job of analyzing this resume and pulling out the key points. So before, the estimated ATS match is 48 to 55%. So that's not nothing, right? It shows that your leadership is present, your operation skills are present, but it also shows that you're missing quite a few things. So it's not that you're not qualified for the job, but it's that you're going to get ranked a little bit lowly for that job. And so it could be the case that a human, as they're going through looking at who's the best fit for the job and doing those follow-up calls and sending interview invites, they just never even make it to your resume because you're ranked a little bit lowly. Whereas if you actually implemented these specific tactics and the advice from the AI, then you'd be more likely to match at 82 to 90%. So I'm viewing that like now you're getting an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 instead of a 50%, right? And so you're much more likely to be ranked towards the top of that system. They also noted this resume looks more like an early draft rather than a finished leadership resume. And that is a call out. I mean, I love, for example, when I'm looking at resumes of applicants and I see that they put, I'm detail oriented, and then I realize in the next few lines, like they're not even spelling stuff right, or it doesn't even look like they really put that much effort and energy into creating a polished final product. So it's important feedback to take into consideration. And you could always take this one step further and say, thanks, ChatGPT. I really appreciate all of this advice. Now can you combine all of this information into a finished product for me and make sure that you put it in a Word document instead of a PDF? And it will pretty much create the whole resume for you, easy peasy. And in the Word document format, not only is that better for the ATS system to read, but it also allows you to make your own changes if you feel like there's something else you could do to add your personality or add your experience. There's still that room for improvement. So just to recap on this first point here before we go into our next point. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you being here. So we like to do a signature segment called Real or Hype. So tonight's claim was that the ATS is a robot that reads your resume and instantly decides whether you get an interview or you go in the trash. So that's what we thought from the statistics we learned on our last episode. And that's actually mostly hype. And there's a real problem underneath it. The hype is that the idea is that every resume is instantly deleted because the robot dislikes the wording or dislikes the format, but most systems are not automatically rejecting you. They're just ranking you and potentially organizing you to be low on the list. And so when recruiters filter by score and decide who they're going to spend energy following up with, you might not even make it to the list that they're looking at. And once they've called 10 people and they've done everybody with the 80 and 90%, but you're down in the 60%, you're not even getting reached at that point. The real part of this is that qualified people can disappear below the recruiter's line of sight simply because the resume was parsed badly. So, the first step was that it's just received, and then it goes through the process of extracting your information. And it could be the case that they missed that information, or your language in your resume didn't actually reflect the job description language, or it hit some sort of filter selected by the employer. So you got to make sure that you also format it correctly, and you take the time to do that job fit check or the resume analysis that we just did. There's also a little bit of a bias issue. So automatic screening is not automatically neutral. So we should use the tool strategically without pretending that the system is perfectly fair. It might not be instant rejection, but it could still be ranking you lowly. Yeah, somebody here says, I don't like ATS at all. I agree. This is why I'm trying to learn how to just implement AI in my everyday life and make it more effective for my work, because before I started, I thought I'm doing great resumes. They look incredibly attractive, and I felt like I well defined my experience and my specific highlights and achievements all in one page. I felt like I was doing the most. And then once I started this process of saying, well, what would the ATS think? Then I realized, okay, no, my resume is actually falling in the bottom of the barrel for these people. That's why I'm not getting calls back. It's not because I'm not qualified for the job. It's because the AI robot ranked me lowly. And that's so frustrating, but it's the kind of the world we live in these days. So what I mean by that is, we learned last time that up to 99% of especially Fortune 500 companies are using the ATS. They are using a system like that, whether we like it or not, really. So we have to make sure that we're now kind of changing our approach and making sure we're not just tailoring it to the human eye, but we're tailoring it to the robot eye, whether we like it or not. Oh, hi. Did I miss information about cover letters? I was late. Oh, thanks. I'm glad that you're here. So, fortunately, I'm doing a whole series on this conversation. Last episode was how you find the right job for you, for your skill set, or how you can match your skill set to the job that you want. Today is specifically about how you fix up your resume and oh yeah, thank you. How you fix up your resume and how you can use AI to take your experience that's already true and well and good, but make sure your resume is formatted correctly and it's including the keywords that the employer wants to see. And then, once we feel like we're all on the same page with having an effective resume, tomorrow we're going to get back together and, well, I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Thursday. Thursday, we're going to get back together and do a deep dive on cover letters specifically, because that is a really important aspect of applying to your job. Not only is the automated system probably going to use that to consider your application as well, but that's what I think is really key for the person to see and really know, outside of your experience specifically, who you are as a person. Like, why are you even applying to this job, and what are you passionate about, and how can I see a little bit of personality come through, so I can see that you're not just like clicking auto apply to every single job on Indeed that comes up, but you actually want this job specifically, and why. So we'll be able to have a whole conversation about cover letters specifically. We have just a little bit more that I want to share about the resume system. So let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so this is where we landed last time. And if you have any specific questions, then I'd be happy to address that as well. If you're working on your resume, if you're applying to jobs right now, and you're like, oh, here's my resume, here's the job I'm applying to, what can I do better? Then please let me know. We also have a community Discord, so that if I wasn't able to get to your specific goal tonight, then you're able to join the Discord and post in our evening AI group chat, your job you're trying to apply to. You can share your resume if you want, and I'd be happy to continue helping you and giving any advice that I can to set you up for success. And then potentially we might use your example on future conversations. So, like, for example, maybe you're just working on your resume right now, but I can take your experience and the job you're applying to, and the next conversation we have, I'll tell you how you can make an effective cover letter. So this next prompt that we want to do is comparing the resume with the job description. So, let's see. So this first one, let's just compare what we were doing here so we're on the same page. So this first one was doing these 5 different steps for us, and then this second one is just a little bit different. So it's comparing the resume with the job description, and it's specifically focusing on keyword analysis, because that is the big issue that usually comes into play with these ATS tracking systems. So it's saying, compare my resume with this job description. List the most important keywords or phrases by priority: critical, important, and nice to have. Identify which missing terms I can legitimately add based on my actual experience. And then for each legitimate term, suggest where to add it or write a natural example. Flag any terms that I can't honestly explain or claim and explain why. And then estimate the keyword match score before and after the honest revision. So the first one was sort of analyzing our resume as a whole. This one is zoned into the specific content of your resume. And again, it will provide you some information that you can use based on comparing the job description and the resume that you upload. So I have that attached in the job description already copied and pasted. Okay, so based on the resume you uploaded and the job description, your resume is already a strong fit for this operations manager role. It appears to be around 80 to 85% ATS keyword match before any revisions, because many of the core responsibilities are already represented. So that's actually really exciting to see. You can give yourself a pat on the back. You're actually hitting a lot of the keywords that you need. But then it will highlight for you immediately the keywords that are missing, and by priority. So you can consider, is that actually part of my job experience? Does that actually relate to me? Maybe I should consider that and make sure that I add that to my resume as well. So, and you can just see like highlighted here, like red, critical, yellow, important, green, nice to have. So while it says, 80 to 85%, if we added all of this information, we could probably get to 100%. And then it says, based on your actual experience, here's the legitimate terms you can honestly add. So go right to, analyzing what you said and then revising it to something more effective. Or if you actually were part of scheduling or continuous improvement, then make sure you plug in those things. So it gives you some information that allows you to still be completely honest with your experience, but you're just making sure to give yourself credit for the work that you've done and make sure that the way you do it is done effectively. So it gives you some example sentences that you can just copy and paste right into your resume. Wow, and look how thorough this is. I mean, if we just put those, like I said, if we added all 10 of these and it seems legitimate to your experience, then that will probably get your keyword analysis up to 95%. And then it also says terms that you should not add. So this means that these are things that aren't necessarily supported by your experience, supported by the resume you provided. Maybe you did those things, maybe you didn't, but it's just encouraging you to be careful that these are words that the system is looking for, but don't add them, haphazardly in your key skill list unless it was actually something that applied to your previous experience. And then it compares us before our score that we mentioned. And then if we made all of these revisions, yeah, we'd be in the mid 90%. So that's a significant improvement. And if it's ranking us, we'd be much more likely to rank at the top. So again, after this point, me personally, I would just be like, great, apply all that information and put it in there for me and send me back a resume. I'm just going to let ChatGPT do the work for me at this point because it understands through these conversations I'm having what I'm trying to accomplish here. I am trying to tailor my resume to the ATS system because whether I like it or not, most of these big companies are probably using that. Okay, let's come back to the chat. Oh, thanks, Ruby. I'm going to be so excited to have you in our next episode where we talk about how to apply some of these tips to a more effective cover letter. If anybody has any specific questions about making an effective resume, about how to tailor it to the ATS system, like I said, I'm happy to help you. Just let me know. One thing that I would encourage you to keep in mind is that you should have a master resume that pretty much effectively covers your complete and comprehensive experience. And this is the one that you can, it's your go-to. You can use quickly if you're doing a quick apply. Great. That's the one that effectively covers everything you know how to do. But more importantly, that master document is what you can post in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use. And when you plug in the job description, then you can say, please tailor this resume to the job specifically that I'm applying for. And you'd be surprised at how it can actually, just effectively change the packaging a little bit. Maybe you have a variety of experience. You've done training, you've done marketing, you've done front desk work, and the AI system will know how to highlight the specific experience that is most relevant for the job you're applying to. So it's not just saying, I can do all the things, but I'm going to have a resume specifically for applying to that marketing job or specifically applying for that training job. And then once you do that a couple of times, then you can have a few different resumes based on the type of job and based on the skill set. So then maybe you keep like a folder where you have your master document, your training resume, your marketing resume. You have the plain document for the automated systems, and then you have the pretty polished graphic PDF that the human will see and feel, like, oh wow, this person actually knows how to make a good looking document and is really trying here to make a good resume for us. That's what I see anyways when I actually look at like those pretty polished resumes. I like it as a human. But yeah, so you can have like a variety of resumes that you use. And it's definitely worth thinking about the fact that if you're out there just quick applying to jobs, take an extra 2 minutes to have AI help you take just 2 minutes to copy and paste your resume and the job description and say, is my resume actually going to get me this job? Where would I rank on the list, and how can I make it better? And if you're already happy with your ranking, great, move forward. That only took you 2 minutes. If you're not happy, then ask it to fix it, and then you spent 3 minutes, right? And then that 3 minutes could make or break if you actually get that job, or if you actually, get a call back for that job at the very least. Eventually in the future, we'll have a conversation about how to effectively, have an interview, and how AI could even help you with those skills, interview preparation. There's a lot that we can talk about when it comes to actually working towards getting that job that you want. So we're just going to take it step by step. One other question that I hear a lot is about if you have an employment gap. And I think, frankly, the best thing is just to be honest and address it clearly. Most employers do have some sort of filter set if they're using the ATS system on, 6 months is acceptable. We understand things happen, people go without work, or they had a baby or something like that. But not everyone does. So it's better just to be honest in your experience. Don't try to fudge it. So then when you go in for your interview and you're having a conversation about your life and your reality, that it all tracks. So AI is not trying to replace our experience or invent something we didn't actually do. It's just trying to make sure that you represent yourself well and you give yourself credit for the things that you actually did do and accomplish. So before we close, here's the order that you should look at your resume tonight. First is just auditing the formatting. So again, maybe it's the case that you're using text box or just a PDF, or you have, a bunch of graphics. How can you simplify your resume so that it will pass that parsing system? Then you can compare your resume with the job description and see how it matches up and how you would rank. And then you can run a final score and red flags check. So the AI can actually help you. We talked about a job fit analysis last time. Like, maybe you start with just saying, am I a good fit for this job? Would I like this job? Is it a good fit for me and my lifestyle culturally? And then how can I bridge the gap between my experience and the experience this job is looking for? That's a conversation you want to consider. And then you can apply the prompts that we just did. So, you saw here that we had the 5-step process, and then we also did the keywords red flag check. So you can definitely follow up and do that yourself. So AI can help you see if the formatting is good, if you're a good fit for the job, and if you're including all of the keywords that the job needs to see in order to make sure you pass that ATS system. If you do that, I would love for you to screenshot your before and after and share it with us in the Discord. Like, I can't tell you how much that would excite me to see people actually trying these things and improving their resume and setting themselves up for success a little bit better. And then, like I said, if you need some specific one-on-one tips, then I am more than happy to connect with you there and help you however I can. Because really, that score is not a guarantee. It's just a progress marker that helps you see whether the resume became clearer or more aligned, or what you could do to get it to that point. So that's what we want to help you accomplish. And then please, please, please join us next time. So we'll be back on Thursday around 8 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll continue this conversation of how you can use AI to get a job. We'll specifically focus on how you can improve or create from scratch a cover letter. That's what I'm excited to help with next. I do think it's an important part of the job application process. I mean, like I said, if I'm a human actually looking through all of this stuff and I can see 20 people that just auto applied on Indeed and didn't answer my questions and didn't upload their own resume and didn't upload a cover letter, that one person that did is absolutely going to stand out to me. I'm absolutely going to notice that. The repetition that I've been through for 20 applications is going to break when I see that, oh, this person actually made their own resume, or they actually took the time to tell me why they're passionate about applying for this job. That type of stuff, stands out to the human that looks at your resume, not only the ATS system. So I want to help you be set up for success for both parts of the puzzle there. So did you know that 67% of hiring managers say that they can spot an AI written cover letter in only seconds? Now, if you put those same managers in a blind test, putting letters in front of them with no labels, nearly 82% of them get it wrong. And that was from a study that was done with a blind test with over 1,000 recruiters. That gap between what recruiters believe about their own radar and what actually happens the moment you test it is pretty much the entire episode tonight, because the real risk with your cover letter was never getting caught by a detector. The risk for this piece of the puzzle is sounding exactly like the 40 other applicants who copied and pasted the same job description and used the same tool and hit send, and now a human being has to look through all of those. So you want to stand out. So tonight we're not necessarily going to teach you how to hide the fact that you used AI. It's not an inherent problem with that. We're going to teach you what the recruiter's brain is actually scanning for in the 7 seconds that they give you, and how you can give them exactly what they're looking for on purpose with AI, or now that you have the skills, you can do it on your own, and you can hit that mark every single time. So if you're here, congratulations for showing up for yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Please join us in the comments so I know that you're looking for a job or that you're just learning this information and we can support you. If you've ever used AI to help you write a cover letter or a resume before, maybe from our previous episodes, then feel free to drop like a little robot or AI comment in the chat so we know that you're on board with using this to work smarter and not harder. And if it's your first time here, or you've been following along with us, welcome back to Vitality Social Network. My name is Melon, and I am your host tonight. We have been doing a series on how to use AI to get a job. This is episode 3 of AI in your career. We did start initially at the beginning of this series talking about the 3 filters every application passes through: the ATS, the AI sourcing layer, and the human recruiter, and how to find a job that is a good fit for your skills specifically. In episode 2, we went deeper on that first filter and fixed your resume for it so that you're more likely to rank highly in the list, so you're not being missed by a recruiter even though you have great experience. And then tonight, we're looking at the one document in your entire application that is still supposed to sound like an actual person and not like a robot wrote it. So that's the exact moment when everyone applying against you is using a similar tool to write it. So you really need to learn how to stand out. And I will tell you from personal experience that ATS is the applicant tracking system. That's basically like the AI software that takes all of the keywords from your resume or your cover letter and determines if it lines up with the job description and what the hiring manager is looking for. And then it ranks you or ranks everyone on a list from 0 to 10. And the closer you are to 10, you're going to be at the top of the list of applicants. So if a hiring manager is going through one by one all of their applicants, you want to be towards the top. I have personally used my own resumes, and even though, honestly, I'm very experienced, my resumes were maybe only at like a 50%, so that's why I wasn't getting callbacks. And that's what I wanted to tell you where I'm at. So I actually have experience being the hiring manager. I've spent a lot of time looking at hundreds, maybe even thousands of applicants. I can tell when people spent the time on their resume versus uploading a generic one. Same with the cover letter. When there's one that stands out and is a little bit different and shows more personality or more effort, it breaks the repetition of clicking through dozens of people and it stands out. So it absolutely is worth your time to spend 2 or 3 extra minutes, using an AI tool or just working on the process yourself to make your resume more effective and make yourself stand out. I also, unfortunately, because of this job market, despite having, a decade of amazing experience, several months ago, I was laid off for my job. And I love the position I have now, but I am working a little bit beneath my ability and associated, a little bit beneath my pay. And while I love it, gives me opportunities to work on my own passions, projects, live stream with you guys. I'm trying to figure out what I can do better in order to pass the new AI tools that are filtering everybody out, including me. I want to stand out to the human that I'm applying for. So as I learn these skills, I'm going to share them all with you all and also put in my personal feedback from what stood out to me as a hiring manager. So here's the tension that is driving tonight's episode. 94% of hiring managers say a cover letter influences their interview decision. 94%. That's basically all of them. So 60% of companies require one outright. And even when a posting says optional, 72% of hiring managers still expect or want to see one. Just because you don't have to apply a cover letter doesn't mean you shouldn't if you actually want the job, if you actually want to stand out and show how you're different. So, cover letters are a dead narrative. Maybe you've heard, you can quick apply with Indeed, just use the tools that are available. That is wrong for most people. What has actually changed is not whether cover letters matter, it's that everyone is almost using the same handful of AI tools to write them, which means the letters are starting to sound identical. And that's a completely different problem than the one most advice is solving for. So we are going to have several unique AI prompts today that we can share with you on how you can make your cover letter above and beyond the rest of the pack that is using generic AI prompts to write their cover letter. So here's what we're covering tonight specifically. First is the two readers framework. There are 5 rules to strip the robotic tell signs out of anything that an AI drafts for you. We're going to do a live demo of the draft and then humanized method. So we're going to take your input, your actual interests, your personalities, your skills. You do have to feed it with that information a little bit. We're going to take that first draft and then humanize it. So whatever the AI tool gave us, even, first pass, how can we make it even more effective so that when a person looks at it, you will stand out? We'll do our typical real or hype section, our I can't think of the word, I'm sorry, but the section that we do every single episode where we can determine whether recruiters can actually detect AI. We'll come up with a stat and we'll talk about if it's real or hype. And we'll also do a company tone deaf matching demo that builds directly on the research prompt that we did from episode 1. And then we have 3 prompts to fix your cover letter tonight. So this is going to be a very well-rounded episode, but I promise you that it's not going to take too long to get through. We're going to hit it quick. We're going to work through it. And then you're going to have some real prompts that you can pick from to fix your own cover letter in a matter of 10 minutes. So it might take a minute for me to explain these things and show you and tell you the reasoning behind it. 30, 45 minutes, shouldn't be too long. And then once you take those key points away, you can apply this process very quickly, a matter of minutes. So first, we're going to go ahead and start with the core concept for tonight. Your cover letter gets read twice and by 2 completely different readers. So that's the 2 readers framework. And almost nobody writes for both of them. So again, both the software and then the person. When your company loads your cover letter into the same ATS, applicant tracking system, that scans your resume, it gets parsed for keywords. That means it's going to pull out all of the information. Same way we talked about, you have to have effective formatting so that it can pull out all of that information. But this is important. Cover letters are weighted much lower than resumes in most ATS platforms. So at many large employers, your cover letter is not even opened until after your resume has already cleared that automatic screening. That's why that's a critical part of the step. So a brilliant cover letter cannot necessarily rescue a resume that fails the keyword match. That work has to happen first. And that's what we covered in the last episode, episode 2. But reader 2, that's the human being that will eventually look at your application. That is where almost all of the actual leverage is. So when a recruiter does read your cover letter, they're not scanning it only for keywords like the AI is doing. They are looking for basically 2 things almost exclusively. So first is your personal motivation. Why are you applying for this job at this time? Or, why do you have a change in your career? Why is this a good fit for you? Why are you passionate about the company? So tell me a little bit more. And then also the clarity of your writing. So, do you come across as passionate? Do you come across as detail oriented? Are you eloquent? Can you speak for yourself? Or do you sound kind of boring and generic? I'll just put it that way. So that's what we're going to try to help you with tonight. And here's the research that should really change how you used AI for this document specifically, your cover letter. So some economists at Tilburg University ran a controlled study. They took real job seekers, some were given to ChatGPT access, some were not, and then their cover letters were evaluated blindly by recruiters at major companies. So that's like Philips, PwC, Vodafone, several. And the finding is that AI does not genuinely improve the letters. Your spelling might go up, your grammar might go up, your generic opening and close looks more polished, maybe your formatting looks more polished, but you're not really moving the needle on what it takes to actually get invited to an interview, because none of that speaks to what we just mentioned earlier, your personality, your motivation, that kind of thing. So that's what we really need to consider when we're trying to be more specific when we use AI to support us. They actually weigh personal motivation and clarity, like those 2 dimensions. They actually weighed them, barely improved it at all. In some cases, AI made the writing more complex and harder to read. So the problem is not, can AI write my cover letter? It's, will AI write the one paragraph that only I could have written? That's where you have to put in your personal story and then help bridge the gap, because we still understand that you want to use that tool to help it be more effective. You do want to fix those spelling errors. You do want to make sure that it's well written, grammatically correct, all of those things. We just don't want to sterilize it. We want to keep your personality. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that over the next 20 minutes. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm glad that you're here. I do want to just do a quick check-in before we get to all of our demonstrations, where I'm going to share my personal ChatGPT and some actual cover letters that I have personally seen or used. And some of them are actually going to continue upon the personality, the person, the job, the story that we used in the last episode. But before we get to that, how are you guys feeling? Are you motivated? Are you doing well on your job journey? Have you been trying to apply these skills? I would absolutely encourage you today to pull out ChatGPT or AI and follow along with us. Try it yourself. Plug in your own resume, plug in your own cover letter, and follow along with the prompts and try it. And if not right now, might be a little easier on the replay. Those people can pause and try it as they go. So maybe it's after the stream for those of you that are our real MVPs and join us live. And before I get into the demo, one last thing I want to say is, if you are enjoying this series, please, it means so much to me to like the stream or share it with a friend that would also benefit, or subscribe so you can follow along with the series. That is a vote for you like my content and you want me to continue along with the series. So I would absolutely appreciate that. And I have one more quick question for you. So, do you think that recruiters can reliably tell when a cover letter was written by AI or not? Can they tell if it was a human or if it was AI? I mean, would you be able to tell? So let me know, like A for yes pretty much all the time, or B for no or rarely, or maybe it depends, Let me know what you think. If you picked B, the actual research backs you up on that. I think though, if it were me, that I can usually tell if something is sterilized by now because I use AI so much. So I have learned what their type of speaking or repetition looks like. That doesn't apply to everybody. So it just depends. But the more you use this, the more you can finesse it and make it work for you. So let's go ahead and share my ChatGPT, and I can tell you 5 different things that make a cover letter read as generic, whether a human wrote it on autopilot or an AI did. So let's go ahead and share the screen. All right. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Now, the first thing that you're seeing here, I wanted to share this one example of what I would consider to be a pretty generic cover letter. And we did highlight some of the key phrases that you might look for. So certainly phrases that instantly signal it's a template, whether it was AI written or not. I'm writing to express my strong interest. Okay. I'm a detail-oriented team player with a proven track record, and I am an excellent fit for your organization. That replacing maybe just those 5 different pieces can drastically change if that human gives you more than 7 seconds if they continue along reading the rest of your cover letter to learn a little bit more about you, because that screams template. It screams anybody could have written this. I can't tell you how many times people write I'm detail oriented even though they like have typos later on in the rest of their resume or their cover letter. So we have to think a little bit more creatively. And then also, next, we want to have one real anecdote every letter. So a claim, not a claim, a moment, sorry, a moment. So not saying like, I'm a strong problem solver, but go above and beyond that statement to prove it. Show I had a problem, here's what I did, and here's what happened. Or not say, I have a proven track record on driving success in the organization. But what kind of success? Show me that you know numbers. Tell me where you started. Tell me where you ended. Tell me how long it took. And be proud of the work that you've done. Think about any moments that you've been recognized for, like Employee of the Month or Most Improved or anything like that. Any recognition type of moments or just moments that you were proud of. Make sure you give yourself credit for those stories so they have real examples rather than just abstract claims that pretty much anybody could claim, right? I mean, if you've done this before, there's no shame. We probably all have. I told you I'm here trying to learn and grow too at the moment. So I've also seen this like literally dozens of times. So if this has happened to you, no worries, but we are going to continue to teach how we can personalize and humanize this conversation so that you really stand out. And I think not having abstract claims is a big one. I also see things like this. I thrive in dynamic environments, or I'm a team player, or I'm a great leader. Could you tell me like what your responsibilities were, or how many people you led, or who you helped? Just get a little bit more specific. And then another key point is if you just leave it alone to the AI defaults, they will pretty much use the same 15 to 25 word range over and over. Whereas a real human writing has rhythm. It's a short sentence and then a longer one that carries more weight. And it sounds like an actual person who is speaking and telling their personal story that they're passionate about. So it also helps to take time to read your letter out loud. If every sentence takes the same breath, that's your tell. If you're bored halfway through, that's another great tell. They're probably going to be too. Now, rule number 4, I think I'll demonstrate as we show you. I have kind of a side-by-side comparison. So this is our first one, right? We can immediately tell, all right, sterile. And then we have an example that is after we've humanized it a little bit. So we can already see this example played out North Star Logistics, that's the company, their emphasis on safe, predictable operations and stronger frontline leadership immediately caught my attention. So, this is the skill where you want to use one specific true thing about the company. So, not just like, I admire your innovative culture, which could go to any company, but a real detail. So maybe that's a specific product that they sell. Maybe it's their mission statement that's on their website, and that really resonated with you, and that's why you applied. So make sure you include those things. That is the single fastest way to prove that you just did not take the same cover letter and apply it to every single job you quick applied to on Indeed. That is what's going to make you stand out, show that you're willing to take the time to do a little bit of research, and frankly, it only takes like 2 extra minutes to do that research. It's not very difficult, and it is absolutely worth your time. You also want to consider that it's pretty short and sweet. So this includes a lot of those, what to do points that we already mentioned. So we got more specific here. I lead more than 160 package handlers, and I do administrative employees. Here's part of the work that I value most. I was promoted twice in my first 8 months. That's incredible. And like I told you, I took this information. ChatGPT helped me maybe take out some key personal details, but this was an example of true cover letters I saw from this person. So the beginning that they started with, that was pretty sterile, and then this version that shows a little bit more specifically about their strengths, really. So we want to make sure that we add that human element here, but we still keep it pretty short and sweet. It gets every point hit, and we're still only on one page, really only even about a half a page, and we have showed that we understand the company, we're passionate about their mission, we are more than qualified for the job, and we have excelled at our other jobs. So we've done all of those things, and the person could still read it in under 30 seconds and decide if you're someone that they want to spend extra time calling, or if it's just like a wall of text they don't even have time for, so they move to the next one. Okay, so now I want to know from you. After hearing these few tips before we show you the next piece of the puzzle, I want to hear from you. Have you made any of these mistakes? And it's okay to be honest. Just let me know. I'm super curious. I'll even switch back to the chat for a second just to see what we find here. And then I'm absolutely going to, we're going to continue on with some other key tips. So let's see. Anybody that's here, let me know. Are you just here to learn? Have you made any of these mistakes? Are you already an expert that maybe you could be teaching my next episode? We'd love to have you as a guest. I'll come back in a minute and see who we hear from. And if you're not here on the live, you're here on the replay, feel free to comment. I read every comment. I will respond to you, and we would love to have you even engaged in our community. You can go so far as to join our group Discord and DM me directly, or send me your resume, send me your cover letter. I would be more than thrilled to help you personally with succeeding and getting that job that you want, and really selling yourself, promoting yourself, giving yourself credit for the amazing work that you've done. Because I can promise you, I've read dozens, like hundreds, thousands maybe, of applicants, and they all have room to grow. And once I get to talking to the person, I'm like, dang, I wish you had included more of that. That would have really stood out. But fortunately, I usually talk to most people either way. I'm unlike most people. I got my I'm going to be honest too. Just take a moment before I move to the next segment here. I'm exhausted today. I've had quite the long work day. I have my vitamin energy sugar water, and I also have a relaxation beverage. If you've got a drink and you're still committed here to being here tonight, or you're eating dinner and you're working on this because your future matters and you're dedicated to getting your dream job, I'm really proud of you for showing up and making this an important first step. And I definitely would love to have you on the rest of our series. But we're going to go ahead and continue with the next step of our live demos. So you saw, the before and after, the kind of to-pass method and what they look for. Now, let's see. Okay, so now what we have is a prompt that says, here's the candidate's resume. We pasted it there. Here's the job description. And then I want ChatGPT to write a first draft cover letter between 250 to 350 words, or 3 to 4 short paragraphs. Connect 2 truthful details from the resume directly to 2 priorities in the job description. So we have something that's true about you, we have something that's true about the job and what they're looking for, and keep out all of those generic phrases that we really don't want to see. And we'll see what it comes up with. More prompts that we can share too, but this one is live, so we'll really see what we get. Would you look at that? It looks much more similar to the humanized version that we had here that we clicked on. So it was a little bit more effective in starting off by saying, I mentioned the company, what they're looking for, that your experience aligns well because of years of, working your specific job. And then you talk about your specific responsibilities, but in a way where you are promoting some specifics. So, this one has numbers, KPIs. You also continue what motivates you. You focus on engaging employees, building motivated teams, fostering an environment where people have the tools and support needed. The only thing I would add here, again, if you make it just a little bit more human, this is why I'm passionate. This is why I'm searching for this job at this time. I think this is a great, first pass, copy paste if you're just trying to move quickly. But I personally, as a human reading it, would love to hear more of your story, more of who you are, but still keeping it short and sweet and focused. This is already better than the generic prompt though, because we told it what to avoid. So that's an example of what I'm hoping you'll take away from this conversation today. We didn't get any of that generic, like anybody could write that type of opening statement or claims without details. So this is significantly better than the first draft. But we can absolutely do a second take where we intentionally take what it gave us and make it even more humanized. So now we have an effective cover letter that was written, and we copied it here. So maybe it's that one that it just wrote. We copy and paste. And then we say, flag every sentence that sounds generic, like a template, like it could apply to any qualified candidate. Flag any unsupported claim and any sentence over 25 words that could be split for better rhythm. So that's definitely if you're someone like me where you like to just brain dump, then this will help you organize it and rewrite it, but still keeping it truthful details from our previous resume. Don't invent anything. So you could certainly include your resume here too. ChatGPT is on the same page as us. We've been working on this concept. So that's the great thing about your AI. If you use the same one all the time, it learns you. You can do things like switching it from auto to thinking. So if you need a more complex answer, you want it to pause and review all your previous conversations or dig deep on the internet, you can ask for it to take a little bit more time, give you a little bit more. I consistently do that when I'm saying, hey, write me a 20-page document. I want it to take the time to do its due diligence to make it well. So this says I can definitely do this, but can't complete the rewrite as requested yet because I only have the cover letter, don't have the resume. So that's the exact example of if I had taken the time to do the thinking switch and say, look at the conversations we just had. I have already given you all of this information. We've talked about it today, But on the auto, it doesn't always want to do that right away. It still was able to pull out a lot of the typical flags that we're looking for. So it flagged some things as generic. It flagged our unsupported claim or over 25 words again and again and again and again and again and again. And then gave me like 3 ones that did pretty good. But even this, thanks for taking the time to review my application. And it caused that, fine. It's a standard closing courtesy. And then let me tell you, this was based on what we just gave it, that we had pretty much done pretty well. Now it did have, let's see, that first generic one, but this was written by AI. So if you had just said, hey, give me a good cover letter, this is telling you it's not actually an effective cover letter. So you need to dig a little bit deeper, try a little bit harder. And so here's what it can do. It says if you upload the resume or paste it here or remind it where it is, then it can rewrite the flagged sentences, it can replace generic language, it won't invent anything, it'll just give you credit where credit is due. And I love that. So it can tell you not only what your opportunities are, but how it can help you. So then you can say, yes, please do that. And before it does, you switch it to the more complex version of ChatGPT that you need in order to succeed. So, before I get into the next section, this can be a lot for us to process, but I hope you've already found that these are some useful skills so that if you're just taking a generic cover letter and pasting it to every job you apply to, I'm not going to say you're wasting your time, but your time could be more well effectively spent so that your time is more likely to get you that callback, to get you that interview, to get you the job. So my honest question is for you to consider, based on everything we've discussed, pull up the last cover letter you actually sent and take some time to think about, how can I score this from 0 to 10? Ask ChatGPT based on this information, score it to 0 to 10. And ask yourself that one thing only that it's scoring you about. Does it contain a single detail that could only be true to you? And that's what you're voting. So you're like, 10, I nailed it. This is all unique to me. It shows so much personality, right? Whereas a 5 is like, I did have some generic words and claims, but there's a little bit of personality. It wasn't completely generic. And 0 to 1 is you just took what ChatGPT spit out the first time with a low effort prompt. So it's okay if that happened to you. If you scored low, you're not alone. That is exactly the type of gap that I'm hoping to help people with our training series. And it's the gap that tonight's Real or Hype segment is going to explain. So, for our signature segment, that is what I was looking for earlier. Signature segment is Real or Hype. This is the recurring segment that we have. So, we're going to make a claim. We're going to consider the hype or what's real, what's biased, the verdict. So you can comment real or hype, based on what you think. Tonight's claim is that recruiters can always tell when your cover letter was written by AI. So it is too risky to use it. After everything we've talked about, do you think that real or hype? The verdict is mostly hype. It's wrapped around two problems that are very real, just not the ones people think about. So let's break it down. The hype part. Most recruiters believe that they can spot AI, but surveys put that confidence anywhere from the high 60s to the high 80s%. But when researchers actually tested it blind with real cover letters, no labels, that confidence completely collapsed. So there was a blind study in 2023 where 1,000 recruiters found that 82% could not correctly identify every AI written letter that was set in front of them. And then the study that we mentioned earlier, the Tilburg University study, ran the same test under controlled conditions. So in their test, recruiters performed no better than random chance at telling which letters had AI help. So while people think that they're really good at it, they're not always. So the fear of getting caught with using AI is mostly hype. But here's what's real about it. So the same Tilburg research found something else. When recruiters were told explicitly that a letter was written without any AI help, and it was genuinely high quality, then they rated it higher than an equally good letter that they had suspected had AI assistance. So there is a real premium forming around demonstrably human work. People want human work. That makes complete sense, right? They want to see somebody who's capable and driven, and we get a little desensitized to all the AI rhythm and words and verbiage. And AI mostly helps weaker writers or people that haven't written very often reach an average level. But strong writers who already write very well or speech to text very well and are very eloquent, they gain very little and they actually risk more if a recruiter suspects that the tool did the work. I've actually had people tell me, because I can write paragraphs very well written, that I have had people say to me, "Oh, you just use ChatGPT to write this? Do they always think for you?" And I was like, "Bitch, I wrote that myself. Like, what do you even mean? Like, I'm sorry that you can't write this well and you immediately assume AI, but it offended me a little bit." So I can see why you want your humanity to come across. You want to use your skills, but let AI work for you a little bit. Just understand how it's going to come across, okay? Because there is a fairness problem worth naming. Some companies are now running AI detection tools on applications. Stanford researchers tested 7 AI detection tools against essays written by non-native English speakers and found that they misclassified 61% of them as AI generated, compared to a near zero error rate on native English writing. So if your target company runs your cover letter through a detector like that, and English is not your first language, the tool itself might be working against you before a human ever reads a word. And I know that's a tough line to follow, because some people are very eloquent and very intelligent and very well written in their native language. But when you put it into AI, there's a slight chance that it reads as AI, and it's kind of unfortunate bias. So, the verdict. That whole like instant detection fear is hype. The premium on genuinely personal, specific writing, though, human writing and personal writing, is real. Like, that is valuable. And if detection tools are in play at all, just know that they carry their own biases. So that's one more reason that the fix is not necessarily hiding your process. It's making the letter unmistakably, specifically yours. So if you include those very personal details, or your personal motivation, or your personal journey, or your personal passion for the mission, then it's hard to just read that as AI. And even if they do read it as AI, they're like, okay, well, this person still has specific skills or abilities or motivation that stands out to me and makes me want to read this or makes me want to talk to them a little bit further. They just know how to use AI smartly, right? So that's where you need to have those like uber specific human details that could only be from you. Now, we have one more thing that I want to show you with the screen share, and then if anybody has any questions, start firing them off in the chat, so then we can spend some time answering your questions or your goals specifically. Let me know how many jobs you've applied to, how many you heard back from, what job you're trying to get, if you've tried using a cover letter or not. Just, let me know where you're at so we can have a conversation. But we'll go ahead and share our screen for our last segment. So this one says, here is research about the company. And then, we pasted that in a document. And the company research was similar to what we used already from episode 1. Or we could do something like, a little bit about their mission, recent news, whatever. We just need to have some information about that company, okay? Then we're also going to say, here is the job description. And then we also include the resume. So write a cover letter under 350 words that opens with one specific true detail about the company, not a generic compliment. And be sure that we connect one concrete story from my resume or my cover letter to their priorities, and it matches the tone of their own public writing, okay? So this one has the job listing, and it's going to rely on the job information from another day. So I'm going to make sure I clarify. Find in previous convos. Okay, I'm going to switch it from auto, not to instant, but to thinking. and then I'm gonna send it off. And while I'm sending it off, I'm gonna double check and see if we have any new comments in the chat. I would truly love to hear from you all. I also want to do just another quick invite to our group Discord because perhaps you're a little bit less confident with chatting on the live stream. Maybe you're multitasking, getting ready for bed or eating your dinner or whatever it is. Or if you're watching this on the replay, so you're like, dang, I really wanted to ask you a question, but I'm watching on the replay. You are still welcome here. You can either comment and I'd be happy to respond to you, or you can join our group Discord and DM me directly, and I'd be happy to truly help you one-on-one with achieving your goals. So, going back to this, oh my gosh, look, it's still remembering. That's crazy. I love that. We'll give it one more second. Okay, so it went through. Before I go back to it though, I do want you to consider, have you had a takeaway from today? Is there one thing that you're going to do differently or that you're going to try from all of these prompts? I would love to hear what that one takeaway was, so you could certainly let me know that as well. Now, here's what we got. Dear hiring manager, North Star Logistics emphasizes safe, accurate, and efficient performance while developing frontline leaders and hourly team members. Okay, to me, we started strong. It still sounds a little bit like meh. That combination of operational discipline and team development closely matches the experience I have built through my career. Okay, that's a strong sentence. In my current role as operations manager, I focus on keeping my area running effectively, engaging employees, ensuring they have what they need to succeed, and completing paperwork on time. I was promoted into this position after working at a lower level in the company where I was also very effective. And so, because I was so good at my job, I got a promotion and now I'm a great fit for this job. And I have that detailed hands on experience. So, you want to be proud of that practical knowledge on the frontline distribution work and the leadership experience that you have. They go hand in hand. It shows that you're not some high level thinker, somebody high in the clouds that doesn't really understand what the day-to-day is like. You can play both roles really well. And I know that the company is seeking someone who can balance all of these things, and the position requires, these specific skills. So that's going to help if it does go through some kind of keyword analysis, right? You're like, I clearly understand what the job is looking for, and my background will allow me to contribute those priorities. So I love that. I think it could be, we got to think of our goal here. Are we trying to feed it for the ATS system, or are we trying to feed it to a human? And this one, I don't personally love reading long lists like this. I get a little bit bored. But we like the end, so I would welcome the opportunity to bring my distribution center experience, interpersonal communication, organization, etc., and my problem-solving approach to North Star Logistics. Thanks for your consideration. So I think this was a fantastic first pass if your goal is to make it tailored to the company and make sure that you pass that ATS system. And then now we know some other prompts that we can do if our goal is to make it a little bit more specific for a human that is reading it. So you have that first pass and that second pass where you can be really specific on your prompting, right? This is the difference between a letter that, mentions the company name and a letter that could pretty much be written only for that company, because employers can tell when you just say, dear hiring manager for North Star Logistics, blah, 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 blah. Everything else is just that copy and paste generic resume. So you do want to include their specific priorities, their mission, the job description, goals, anything you can to show that you took the time to understand what they truly need, and think about your job fit check, your job fit rating, like we talked about on the first episode. So, I do want to answer a couple frequently asked questions before we close out for this episode. And then, of course, if you're interested in continuing for our future episodes, make sure you subscribe. So, first question, should I tell the employer that I used AI to help write it? Well, almost nobody asks you and nobody's expecting a confession. So there's a real difference between presenting yourself well and fabricating something that's not true. So you want to use AI to phrase your real experience convincingly. Don't let it just, invent a project, a title, a number that's not real. You need to be able to really speak to your true experience. But again, if you use AI effectively and then personalize it, humanize it, that's okay. You don't necessarily have to call it out to somebody though. And that effectiveness is going to matter far more than whether you actually use AI or don't use AI. Another good question is, should I write a completely new cover letter for every single job? And this is a great question I get from a lot of people. So you should have a master version with your best foot forward that could, have your 2 or 3 strongest achievements locked in. What changes per application should be the opening line and paragraph that connects your work and experience to their specific priority. So that's why we're doing the 2-pass method. And it's about 10 minutes per application, not an hour. We spent an hour today going through all of this, but that doesn't necessarily mean it takes an hour to apply it. That's for sure. It will be much quicker than that. And it is certainly worth the time to then take your generic cover letter that you submit to everyone and then personalize it for that job. That's what our goal is here. And then I think lastly, the main question that I want to hit on is if this says optional, should I still send one? Do I really need to make a personalized one? Is it even worth my time? And for most roles, yes. Only 1 in 10 hiring managers say they genuinely never read them, and 72% still expect one even when the listing says optional. So you really should only skip it for maybe like high volume, skill tested roles where the post explicitly says don't include one because I'm going to be hiring a lot of people. Oh, okay. It looks like maybe my chat didn't update, so I do want to recognize the people that engaged with the chat for other people. You guys are the best. I can see it now. So, Sir Mikey, thank you. You want me to come back to LCU? You're right, I am a lolcow. I will always be a lolcow at heart. If you're still here, I just appreciate you sharing that and watching my content. Um, I would come back if I was wanted back. I had a lot of fun doing what I did with the Lowell University. I really did. And gained a lot of really helpful experience too. Loved having a community. I also have Love is Forever here, who says that they're trying to learn. They truly want to better their skills and make sure that the application that they submit is effective. And of course, Ruby, I always appreciate you being here and supporting. So thank you to everybody. Make sure that you spend some time trying to apply this information. You can try the D-Robot audit, you can try the company tone match, you can try the human check. 3 prompts in one sitting. Maybe you take 20 minutes. And if you do that, I would love for you to share it in the Discord after, before and after, or something like that. And then please join us next time. So again, the danger is not writing a letter, is writing a letter that could have been sent by anyone. We love AI. We want to use AI, but we still want to keep our personality and our personal experience. So at this point, we've covered, is the job a good fit for me? Is my resume effective? Is my cover letter effective? If you're following along and you're checking all of those boxes, you're gonna get an interview, man. I believe in you. You're doing all the right things. Like, what else is left to do? But maybe your job fit analysis and making sure you're a right fit for that job, or bridging the gap between your skill set. But hey, let's assume we're all gonna start getting way more interviews. So we want to help you with practice interviews. And there's several ways that we can do that, and I will bring my human experience to the table. But we're also going to use AI to help run mock interviews or mock interview questions. And we're going to use that, build a feedback loop on your actual answers. We're going to talk about the exact point where practicing with AI starts building real confidence instead of just helping you memorize lines, right? So we still want to keep that human element. We're just using AI to help us work smarter and not harder. So did you know that the most common piece of interview advice, things like reread your notes or run your answers in your head one more time before you walk in, is actually the worst way to prepare? And there is a 50-year-old memory study that proves this. Psychologists at Washington University split students into two groups. They were studying the same material. One group reread it 4 times, and the other reread it once. Then they both tried to recall it from memory 3 times without peeking at the answer key at all. 5 minutes later, the rereaders looked like the clear winners. They remembered 83% of it, and then the group that tested themselves only once remembered about 71%. If the study stopped there, then rereading wins, obviously. But 1 week later, they tested both groups again. The rereaders who felt so confident 5 minutes in had collapsed to only 40%. And the group that actually tested themselves consistently, and the harder, the less comfortable method, they held on to 61%. So the version that felt worse in the moment, a little bit more like work in the moment, actually won by a landslide a week later. I actually have personal experience that applies to this similarly. I was the kind of person that could, write down all the answers right before a test and visually memorize them, or, draw out the map on the geography test and memorize it, ace my test 100%. But if you asked me any of that information today, I couldn't tell you probably one bit of it. That quick recall didn't turn into lasting knowledge and information that I could confidently answer and present to someone if asked. So this is exactly what happens if you reread your resume and rehearse your answers silently the night before an interview versus when you actually practice those answers out loud a few times, get comfortable, get told, what was wrong or what could be done better, try it again. Actually taking that time to get confident and committing those things to memory, not just having that quick recall, will help you ace that interview. So tonight we're going to build upon that second method, the one that actually works. And we're also going to talk about how we can use AI, that is the thing that keeps quizzing you back. So you can obviously use some of these skills with a friend or a family member or someone that has experience as an interviewer, but not all of us has that readily available, but a lot of us do have a phone or a computer readily available, and the AI can also be programmed to know exactly what to look for that specific job or based on your specific skill set. They can really tailor the questions, tailor the responses that they need to hear to you specifically. So we're going to talk about how we can do that. Now, if you're new here, then welcome to the Vitality Social Network. I am your host today, Melon, and this is episode 4 of the series we're doing that's all about AI in your career, how we can actually utilize this tool that we have at our fingertips to get the job that we want, because we know the job market is a little bit challenging right now for everybody. So the more effective we can be at building our resume or building our cover letter, the better. So we started off this series talking about how we find the job that is the right fit for us. We did have an episode all about optimizing your resume for the ATS or applicant tracking system. That is kind of an AI program most resumes are put through these days. Episode 3 was about your cover letter. And again, both of these things we're still trying to just personalize them to you. We're not inventing new information. We're just making sure you get credit for the experience that you have. And then, of course, today is going to be all about how we can effectively, confidently walk into that job interview and ace that process, because this is the one part of the process where there's no second draft. You get one chance. It's live, it's real time. You can't edit, copy, paste, anything like that. You have to show up ready to nail it so that you get that call back and get the job that you want. So hi everybody, thank you for being here. I see SBR Academy, I see Ruby, you're here. Welcome back, thank you for being here. I would love to hear if you're looking for a job, like what is your dream job? What are you searching for? Would love to know that. And so everybody knows, here's the scale of what we're up against, okay? So 93% of people report feeling anxious about job interviews. I mean, that's nearly everybody, right? I've had plenty of experience both as the interview and the interviewee, and I still get anxious. About half of job seekers say that the search itself is actually hurting their mental health. I know a lot of people that have been looking for jobs for months. It might take 6 or 8 months to finally get a call back even. So we're trying to figure out how we can optimize that process and get you all of the callbacks that you want for your dream job. And here's the number that actually explains why interviews stay this hard no matter how many of them you do. Only 41% of candidates say that they have ever received real, specific feedback on an interview that they gave. So think about that. Most of you have been playing this game for years that you almost never even got a scorecard for. You walk out and you have almost no idea which answer landed, which one lost the room, and why you didn't get a call back, but then you have to go in and do the same exact process next time. So tonight we're going to fix that problem. Here's what we're going to be covering. So first is the retrieval loop. This is the actual science of why practicing out loud beats reading your notes or reviewing or thinking about it silently. We'll talk about 5 rules for building a feedback loop that actually works. We have an opportunity to do a live AI mock interview demo. We'll do our signature segment on real or hype and whether these AI interview tools can actually do things like read your body language or build your confidence. And then we'll do kind of a full callback on what we've learned so far and some practice prompts that you can actually use right away and apply immediately. So it might take us, half an hour, 45 minutes to get through all of this information. But once you have it, these are concepts that you can use easily in 10 minutes to feel confident and master that interview process. So thank you everybody for being here. If you're the kind of person that usually preps for your interview by just reading your notes or your resume one more time or practicing silently in your head, give me a thumbs up so that I know that applies to you. Yes, the interview is the most dramatic thing. I mean, you get like everything is made or broken on that moment, right? You know you're skilled, you could do the job, but are you able to effectively convey why you're the right fit for the job to choose you over the 100 other applicants that they had? I mean, no pressure, right? Someone says, Credix, thanks for being here. The one reason I love Indeed's little AI mock interview that grades your answers and tells you how to do better. Yeah, that's one reason he loves it, because it actually gives you feedback, right? You're not going in blind, answering and thinking you did well and then having no idea what could have been done better. I mean, we all get nervous and then, get that self-doubt talking in your head, but I love that sometimes you perform well under pressure. So sometimes you can just show up, give it your all. That's a skill to have. I'm sure everybody wishes they had that skill, Ruby. All right, so let's go back to that study for a second, make sure we understand the mechanism and the reasoning behind why tonight's entire method actually works for us. So, rereading does feel productive. It does. Your eyes move across familiar words, your brain lights up with recognition, and that recognition feels like knowledge. Psychologists call this the illusion of competence, but recognizing an answer when you see it and producing that answer from nothing out loud under pressure are 2 totally different skills. So, Ruby, it sounds like that's a skill that you have where you can act under pressure. I feel like I perform a little bit better under pressure too. Like I think about projects that I have and I'm ruminating, but if I know it's due in an hour, boom, I can get everything out and I'm doing really well all of a sudden. And an interview only ever really tests that second one. I mean, it's not going to matter if you think you can do well. What matters is how you actually show up and perform. So retrieval practice is forcing yourself to produce the answer without looking, without having your notes or your script or anything like that out next to you. It's sometimes harder in the moment. It feels a little bit worse. And so that's exactly why the stakes are turned all the way up. The struggle is to pull the answer out of memory and wiring it for the long-term memory. A real interview is retrieval practice with those high stakes. So the closest thing that you can do is not to rehearse it or not just to reread it, but it's to be asked those real, genuine questions cold and having to answer it live. Answer it in a way that comes naturally. So that's also why memorized like word for word scripts can be a trap. I mean, sometimes it can help be a starting point, help build your confidence, help you know what to say, but you cannot just like recognize and recite because you're not going to be visually seeing those questions. They might ask the questions a little bit differently. And so the moment an interviewer asks you a question that's not the exact one you rehearsed, then your memorized answer breaks. And you have to be confident, rebuilding it a few times, using slightly different words each time. And that flexibility will allow you to confidently answer it no matter how they ask the question. So it helps to say it out loud in a natural cadence a few different times so that you're prepared for a real conversation, real follow-up questions. So the goal tonight is not to just write a perfect script for every single question. It's to build that feedback retrieval loop where you get asked a real question, you answer out loud from scratch, and then you get told specifically what did work, what didn't work, and then let me try it again and go through the same process. So the AI mock interview will actually give you that feedback on demand as many times as you need it. And I'm going to show you how exactly we can do that over the next 20 minutes. So if we haven't heard already, are you like Ruby? Are you someone where you can just show up and nail your interview? Does your interview prep look like just rereading your resume a few times? What is the process that works well for you? I would love to know. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can give you 5 rules for a feedback loop that actually works. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen here. I want to also make sure we can see the chat, so I'm just fixing that a little bit. You guys are very engaged today. I appreciate that. All right, so what you can see here. These are the 5 things that make a mock interview actually prepare you from the ones that just make you feel busy, right? You spent all this time rereading your answer, but did it actually prepare you, set you up for success? That's the real question. So rule number 1, use real questions, not generic ones. So, okay, I have some examples of some generic ones that I'm thinking, right? Like, why are you interested in this job? Or tell me about yourself. That's a great place to start. You might want to have some example paragraphs or scripts written out so like what are my key points that I need to hit. But it's not going to then train you for the specific follow-up questions that interview is asking in real time. So you do have to get a little bit creative with some of those realistic questions. Tell me more about this experience, right? You have to be prepared for those follow-up questions. Rule number 2, answer out loud every single time. So not in your head, not typing it out. Speak the way that you actually would speak in a real life situation. Silent review is just like rereading in disguise. It's not actually going to transfer to that in the moment conversation the way that you need it. Rule number 3 is score against a rubric, not just a vibe. So don't just say, was this good? Was this bad? Did you like it? Did you not like it? You need to have actual criteria that they're looking for, the structure, the specificity, the relevance to the role, not just how did it sound, because that good job is not really going to teach you anything we can act on. So we will talk about a structure called the STAR structure today that you can utilize in your AI prompts. Then rule number 4, fix the flagged answer in the same session. So if the AI flags a weaker answer, redo it immediately, right then, while the feedback is fresh. Don't just wait till later. That usually means never. Don't wait till you're done with the whole process and kind of just keep going through the motions. Go ahead and work on it, master it right then, so that you won't be tripped up by that end up being the one question the interview actually asked and you weren't prepared to nail it. If that's your weak spot, then spend more time on the weak spot. And then lastly, rule number 5, space your sessions across days, not one quick cram. So today specifically, we are going to be cramming this all into, one conversation, how you can prepare, right? But you can take this information and practice it over the next several days, because that will actually help that long-term memory. A meta-analysis of more than 300 memory experiments found that spaced out practice consistently beats the same amount of practice crammed into one sitting. So 3 20-minute sessions this week will outperform one long, hour-long session tonight. So if you're actually watching this on the replay and you're following along with the different demos or questions that you have, you might even start with, one prompt, practicing it several times for 20 minutes, mastering it, and then coming back and continuing along with the next 2 prompts. That could end up being a more effective way to get that information to stick in your brain. So we do have the opportunity to actually run an example, and I also want to show you a few things that ChatGPT was able to provide for me as a resource. I thought this was really cool. So first we have our prompt here. We can say, here is my resume. Here is the job description. So in both of these cases, I took my real resume, my real experience, but I tweaked it just a little bit to make it more anonymous. So, we're going to practice safety a little bit here, right? But it was able to provide some of that information for me. So it took my real resume, and we can see here I have my professional summary. We can see my core strengths, all of my experience. And I just love knowing how quickly AI can pull out that information and turn it into an effective resume. It's kind of cool. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can create a resume that is optimized for the ATS applicant tracking system, then go back and watch one of our previous episodes so that you can get one of these made for you. And it's not just generic, but it actually is going to help you get the specific job that you're applying for. Similarly, it was also able to pull out a specific company and job posting with the opportunity and key responsibilities. So if you're applying for a specific job, then you want to actually copy that whole description and paste it into your AI tool whenever you're creating a resume or a cover letter or practicing for your interview, so that the questions that they end up asking are going to be more tailored for the actual job that you're going for, or your keywords that you end up filling into your resume are going to be more tailored to the actual job position that you're looking for. So we went ahead and set that up specifically here. And then we're also going to ask it, like we said, we need specific criteria. I don't want it to just ask me some questions and then say good or bad, right? So what we have here is a criteria called the STAR structure. So score the answer from 1 to 10. The STAR structure is specificity, relevance to the role, evidence/results, and then my delivery. So tell me the weakest part, and then ask one realistic follow-up question before moving on. Don't praise me unless you can name exactly what worked. I also gave it an example question. So let's go ahead and send that and see what we get. Kind of curious to find out. Whoop, whoop. All right, I'm gonna close my chat for one quick second here, just so that everybody can make sure that we can see you. Give me 1 second. Want to make sure you can all see what's on the screen here. Whoop. Oh, I see who. You can see everything clearly too. Maybe I'll just move the chat down here for now. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm using the AI tool on my computer, and there's a couple of things that I can do with this. So first, it does have the option to actually read it out loud. If I go to this here, I can also use a microphone tool where it does speech to text. I also have the ability to do it on my phone where it's actually a conversation back and forth. So this one says, tell me about a time that you had to create a scalable training solution for people with very different levels of experience. So, oh my gosh, that is like very specific to my job, right? That's an example of something where, I mean, it's not quite tell me about your job, tell me about the responsibilities that you had, but it's really looking for a real life example. And if I hadn't practiced my answer, it might be a little bit rough. So let me think here. I'm going to use the dictate button. So it's going to listen to what I say, and then it'll type out my answer as we go. And then like we plugged in, it'll, grade it, and it'll tell me the weak areas and how I should possibly redo that. So create a scalable training solution with people with different levels of experience. Okay, so let me think of the strongest example. The closest relevant experience that I can think of would be a time where I had to create a week-long training for onboarding new franchise owners to learn the core responsibilities and how the business ran. And the foundational structure of this training was essentially a front desk manager training. They had to learn how to sit in that seat and run the business from inside out. So I really created a comprehensive front desk training, but I made this optimized for people of varying levels of experience. So whether it was for a chiropractic company, so whether you knew about chiropractic, whether you knew about sales and front desk training, there were all kinds of tasks or prompts that we could do, activities worked in, role playing, e-learning worked in, where we were tailoring it to someone with the base level, little experience as possible. And then some of these different activities could be optional. So if you are already a master of chiropractic, then maybe we check that box. We don't have to do the chiropractic e-learning. If you are already a master at the sales training portion, then maybe we could do a few less specific examples there. So I did have it tailored to the person in front of me's experience level. Okay, obviously I just made that up on the spot. I'm going to press check. It's going to hear me saying that too. It's still dictating, but you could tell. I mean, I'm a little bit nervous, right? That was my first time saying that out loud. I thought about that a little bit already. I actually have some examples like written out for me. It made this very cool guide to have all of these type of answers, but if I didn't say it out loud, I'm stumbling a little bit, right? So it's going to include all my all my thinking. I'm going to send that, and we're going to see what it has to say, right? Okay, so it said, solid first attempt, but we're being strict, so I'm going to score it like a real hiring manager. For the star structure, I got a 6 out of 10. All right, I explained the situation and the action, but the task wasn't clearly stated. The result was essentially missing. Oh, okay, that's a good point. So I created this comprehensive training structure, but I didn't explain the impact. So saying, for example, after my training, we realized that all of the new franchisees were more effectively set up for success. And then going forward, they were able to, achieve profitability in only 90 days and 6 months instead of 6 months or something like that, giving the actual impact from this specific answer. Specificity. So the franchise owner and onboarding and optional learning paths felt concrete, but several phrases stayed broad. So activities, role play, e-learning. I could have been a little bit more intentional when what type of activities, what type of role play that we were doing. Relevance to the role. So this was excellent alignment to the specific job posting that I used as an example here. I got a 9 out of 10 for that. The evidence slash results, we already mentioned that. I didn't actually mention whether all of that worked or not. Was it effective? Did I do all of that work and then we ended up with the same result? It's important for me to have some kind of, numbers or testimony to demonstrate the real life impact of what I've done. And then my natural delivery. It was conversational and believable, but a little searching for words at the beginning. However, it sounded like a real interview rather than something memorized. So I'm sure you guys could feel that too. I was searching a little bit. I was stumbling a little bit. I think that made it real, but if I had done this 2 or 3 times, then it would have sounded much more confident, much more professional and precise. So obviously we know the weakest area. As an interview, they were waiting for the payoff. Like, okay, I listened to you, 90% of it was all about what you did, but you never told me why it mattered, what happened because of it, maybe the issue that we had before that I was able to solve through this process. And, I know all of those things in my head, but I hadn't practiced on applying that to the information. So it then gave me an example of structural rewrite using only mind facts. So I love this. So I'm going to read this one out loud. And then if I was actually going to use this, I would need to practice just recalling it a few times without reading and memorizing the words. So at my previous company, I was responsible for creating a week-long onboarding program for new franchise owners. My goal was to help people with very different backgrounds learn the core responsibilities of running the business. I built a program around a comprehensive front desk manager training because I believed that understanding of the role gave owners a strong foundation for how the business operated. And since participants came in with different levels of experience, I designed the training to be flexible. It included role-playing, activities, e-learning, and coaching that could be adjusted based on the learner. For example, someone already experienced in chiropractic or sales could skip certain foundational modules while someone new would complete the full curriculum. And the result was a scalable onboarding program that could be tailored to each learner while still delivering a consistent training experience. Okay, so that's obviously way smoother than the way I said it before. And it had a little bit of a stronger ending there because I hadn't mentioned any outcomes before. And AI did not make up outcomes either. It took what I said. It wasn't saying, and afterwards, we improved the company by so much or started giving percentages or revenue or numbers. It's not going to make up something that you don't offer it. It's just going to help you, do what you do and reflect what you've done more effectively. So then my follow-up question is, how did you measure whether that training was actually successful? That's an incredible follow-up question. And as you guys have heard, that would be me needing to prepare. Maybe I have, a quick bullet point list of like some key numbers on, did we save time with a training that was more effective? We used to train people for 6 weeks, and with this training, now we can get it all done in 1 week with the same level of impact. Did we improve the ability to reach profitability sooner or later? What was the actual result of that training that proved its success? So I love this as an example follow-up question. All right, so we're going to pause here. If you've made it this long, I would love to know how you guys are doing. If you've ever tried anything like this using AI specifically for your job searching process. I heard somebody say they used the AI Indeed interview process. We showed an example here on ChatGPT. I kind of want to show you an example on my phone a little bit too, where it's actually more of a back and forth. But we're going to pause with our signature segment, which is Real or Hype. So, real or hype time. Tonight's claim is that AI interview tools can actually read your body language and your confidence to score whether you'll get hired. The verdict on this one is that it's mostly hype, and the industry's own history actually proves that. So one of the largest video interview platforms in hiring, HireVue, spent years scoring facial expressions and eye movement. And in 2021, they dropped it entirely after a federal complaint and independent audit. So the company's own data scientists found that all of that visual data, the face, the gaze, the expression, contributed about 0.25% to predicting who would actually perform well in the job. So it was not able to effectively tell you if that candidate was going to actually succeed in the job's activities and requirements. It was nearly worthless, honestly. So it created that real bias against candidates with disabilities, facial differences, different cultural norms around expression. You can think about how the way that you express yourself or some of these other things would change entirely how that's going to score you, but not reflect your ability to do the job. So in 2025, a study came out of Virginia Tech that tested the specific advice you've probably heard, which is, stare directly at your camera, to fake eye contact, make sure it looks like you're paying attention. And across 2 separate studies, deliberately simulated eye contact had little to no effect on how interviewers actually scored people. So to be fair, the research isn't unanimous. A separate study did find that looking away from the camera entirely, maybe you're really shy, maybe you're looking at your notes, maybe you're thinking, if you had something like that, it did lower scores somewhat compared to looking at it. So presentation isn't nothing. But it's not just the soul reading, confidence scanning system that a lot of people imagine. It's not quite as effective as we might imagine. So the content and the structure still carried most of the actual weight. So that being how you actually answered the question, the quality of your answers still was the majority of the weight in how you were scored. Now, the part of this claim that's real is that a large study in 2025 ran more than 360,000 identical fictitious resumes through 5 major AI models and found that there was actually a consistent bias. So the models favored female candidates while scoring Black male candidates lower, even if they had identical qualifications. So that's actually a real documented problem, and it's exactly why states like Illinois or cities like New York actually legally require companies to disclose AI use in interviews and audit these tools for bias, so that we don't have issues like that, or people who are well qualified or maybe getting ranked poorly for some of those reasons. So the verdict is no, AI is not reading your soul or your abilities through your webcam. The idea got tested and largely was retired by the industry, but the system screenings can carry real, measurable bias, and that's a policy problem worth knowing about. So it's not a reason to perform differently in front of your camera, and you really should just focus on the quality of your answers and your confidence. So practicing that so that you can have that recall more effectively and quickly. I would love to know if you think about your real last interview. I want you to score yourself from 0 to 10 on how prepared you actually felt walking in. So not how well it went, but how prepared you felt before you knew the outcome. I actually had my most recent phone interview, like phone screening type conversation, this morning. And if I had to rate myself, let me think about that. If I had to score myself 0 to 10 on my preparation, I would say maybe like a 6 or 7. And only because this was, it was a job that I had done before. I wrote out some bullet points on, why I wanted to return to this job, what I had done effectively in my previous job, what I was looking for in terms of a schedule and that kind of thing. And so I felt overall pretty good about it, but fortunately, he didn't throw me any hard curveball questions, but he did ask me at the end, do you have any questions for me? And I hadn't really prepared for that, so I just came up with something off the top. And fortunately, that recall helped me that I had actually, been in that job before, and I was able to ask a question about maybe what's changed in the past few years and, what kind of retraining I might need in order to be set up for success. So that went well, but I probably could have taken some time to apply these skills. So I'm coming from someone who has been a hiring manager, but I've also been interviewing. I've been applying for jobs. I'm trying to get back out there and elevate my career to the next step. And so I'm trying to learn all of these skills and share them with you as I learn them. And I would love to hear from you all if you're interested in joining our group Discord. If you're applying for a job specifically and you want a real human eye to look over your resume or to give you feedback on how you could make it a little bit more effective, how you could use AI tools to help you prepare for that next interview, that when you get it, when you land it, I would love to speak with you one-on-one. So click the link for our Discord in the description and feel free to message us there and get the community support feedback, or you can DM me directly or comment here on the replay what kind of job you're looking for, anything about your experience that you want to share. I would love to help support you in this process. It is a tough industry right now. So the more that we can help you guys, the better, that's for sure. So Ruby says in the chat that many people overlook the the importance of asking the interviewer questions, but it's actually one of the most important parts of the interview. Exactly. So you want to know, like, what does it take to succeed in this role? Why are you hiring at this time? What didn't work out about the last person? What would you hope to see? Like, what impact could I make? What does success look like for you guys? I mean, I don't know, anything. They want to see that you're engaged and that you're actually excited about joining this company, being involved in the mission and the work and helping them succeed. And that I can tell you personally that there was one time I interviewed for a position, and I was ready. I was like, what kind of software do you use? What is your training like? What do you need from me? I was asking all of these things, and I think that level of engagement showed them that I was serious. I was taking this job seriously. I did the time to do my research, but I wanted to learn even more. I wanted to make sure that this job was the right fit for me, and obviously that I was the right fit for them. And I think that really impressed them, that engagement level, that I wasn't just saying, no, I have no questions, see you later. But I actually took the time to vet each other. So I would absolutely encourage that as well. All right, so we do have another example that we can share here. Let me see. I want to share my screen, but I think I'm also interested in potentially using my phone for this one. So I'll show you this other example that you can use as a prompt. So we have the fictional job description again, and my resume, and the company snapshot here. So you can ask the AI, act as a senior interviewer, ask me one behavioral question that uses my strongest matching experience, one question that directly probes an honest gap, one question that tests whether I understand the company's operational tension, and then use the star structure. But I want to show you kind of a cool tool on how you can do this with your phone, so it actually has a conversation with you back and forth. So let's see, I'm going to start a new chat on ChatGPT. And I'm going to, I press the button that pulls up this dot, and I'm going to say, act as a senior interviewer at Thrivewell and ask me a question that probes an honest gap in my resume, and then score my answer on the star structure, which is all about structure, specificity, relevance, results, and tell me whether I sound informed or generic.
All right, got it. Here's your interview question. Looking at your resume, you've moved across roles in training, operations, nutrition, and clinic management. Tell me about a time when a hiring manager or a stakeholder questioned whether your experience was directly relevant and how you handled it. Give me your answer out loud, and I'll score it on structure, specificity, relevance, results, and delivery. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me think about an example of a time I had that experience. So I have had varied experience. One time I applied for a job at a center that supported the elderly, and I was able to explain that in my previous job positions, while I hadn't necessarily supported that direct client population, I was still performing the job requirements needed. So I was able to lead the staff, oversee the training program, and I'm all about operations. So in my first time I step foot into the company, I'm going to learn your business inside and out, and then be able to apply the skills that I have. So in that situation, I wasn't able to have experience with that target population, but I did have transferable experience that could still be used for that population. Oh my God, that was terrifying. Okay.
Thanks. That gives me enough to go on. Here is your score. For star structure, 4 out of 10. You had a situation and some action, but no clear task or result. Specificity, 3 out of 10. You stayed high level. Relevance was 8 out of 10. That part was strong, making the case that your L&D skills transfer. Evidence and results, 2 out of 10. There was no outcome or data mentioned. Delivery, 5 out of 10. You sounded sincere, but a bit generic. Phrases like, I'm all about operations, are common, but not very vivid. The single weakest part is the missing result. What actually happened? Did you get the interview or the offer? And here's a realistic follow up. Can you give me one specific example of a transferable skill you highlighted and how you connected it to that organization's needs? Want to give that a shot?
No, I don't. Okay. Oh my God. All right. So I'm like panicking, and this is a fake interview with AI. You feel me? Oh my goodness. So this is an example of why it's absolutely worth trying this and using some of these prompts where you have those challenging questions that are specific to the job or address your actual resume, that you have to be prepared to answer these questions about. Because I mean, like, I feel anxiety heavy just from like doing this fake example for you guys here live. So it's worth taking some time to practice this, to get confident, to allow it to give you this feedback. And I mean, what if you feel like the AI's feedback is wrong or is too harsh? Okay, honestly, take a breath. It's just a robot, okay? It's fine. And it's not a verdict. And if it doesn't feel right to you, I can always ask it to explain its reasoning, or run my same answer past a real person, a friend, a mentor, a family member. Tell me how a human might respond to my real answer, because sometimes I am a little bit more conversational and personal, and I'm not always like tightly professional when I answer these questions. And it's not a perfect judge. It might be looking for something that a real person might give me a pass on. I might be able to charm them with my answer. I don't know, right? So you want to get these different perspectives, but you should still take its feedback to heart, because it depends on the type of job that you're applying for. Maybe like the level of experience that job's requiring, or the level of responsibility that you'll have. And professionalism and confidence and having concise, effective, eloquent answers might be a critical part of the role. If you're going to be responsible for training and teaching other people, you need to be able to explain yourself well. So it's worth taking the time to practice this. I would love to know if you guys have any specific questions about how to use the AI tool, or how to set yourself up for success in an interview. You can certainly take some of these prompts and try them out yourself, whether you want to use the web version, or you want to use the version on your phone. I definitely think you could take away and use these skills right away. But I'll go ahead and answer a couple questions that I get, my frequently asked questions. So one is, how many mock interviews should I actually do? And the answer might be fewer than you think before it actually starts helping. And like we talked about before, instead of spending an hour, maybe you do 10 minutes a day. And so that way, just saying it out loud even one time will prompt in your mind, oh, this could have been better. That could have been a little bit more effective. And then once you do it a second time, you're much more likely to polish it up, to nail the key points that it's looking for. And then by the third time, it's going to be locked in. I think any more than that, you should just move on to the next question. You should move on to the next focus point. So Spacing is kind of a better idea, spacing it out than just spending an hour practicing the same question over and over and over. Just 2 or 3 times of trying this out will really help build your confidence and build your ability to answer these questions effectively. You might also want to ask yourself, is it even worth, performing for an AI screened video interview versus a human one? I mean, I think it depends what your goal is, because not everybody has someone that can provide specific critiquing other than good job, that was good, or no, that wasn't good. And so if you're looking for something specific to practice, you can enter that prompt into AI and it can judge you on your tone, your confidence, your verbal fillers, your specificity, your results, whatever it is that you feel like you need to improve on, you can tailor your strategy with AI. So I definitely think there's a great value in using this tool to set you up for success. But, the goal is not just performing in front of a camera, practicing your eye contact. The goal is getting you confident and giving yourself credit for the experience that you already have. And if you need help with humanizing it, then call a friend. You can use both tools. I also sometimes struggle with drawing a blank when I get nervous. I definitely can freeze under pressure. And so if you're taking the time to just read your answers, scanning and thinking silently about your answers, that probably won't help overcome that freezing that happens. You really have to be able to pull it out of muscle memory and take the time to practice out loud against real follow-up questions so that you won't freeze and all that information that you read and had that, visual cue won't disappear and be hard to pull back when the answers are a little bit different. So absolutely take the time to practice out loud, but there's a lot that AI can do. I just want to show you one more time real quick, a really awesome thing that the AI built for me as I was preparing for this stream today. So I have a takeaway toolkit that is going to be incredible to use going forward. So let's go ahead and switch back to my screen share so I can show you here. All right, so I have all of my prompts that I can copy and paste. Incredible. And then I have this master prep sheet here. Let me pull it up so you can see. You can also see here it has my resume, my job descriptions, everything else that I might need, right? I'm going to move my chat over to the different side of the screen so you can see it all really well. All right, so, oh no, something went wrong. Let me just refresh here. All right, I also have a printed version of this if I need it. First, I have a one-pager where I have some anchors. It says tell me about yourself. And it says here 6 numbers that I can use, actual results that I've mentioned before. It's very cool. I also have here my top stories that I can share. I have bridge lines. So let me think of my strongest example. The main action I took was, I don't want to invent a percentage, but the evidence I can stand behind is X. It gives me a lot of specifics that I can actually say. It gives me some example questions that I can ask. So this one-sheeter is very helpful, but then it built it out into a 13-page guide with actual questions, actual answers. So let me show you some of those here. It's pretty awesome. So tell me about yourself. I can practice reading that and getting confident. Why are you interested in this role? Why did you leave your last role and what are you doing now? Why should we hire you over someone else? And then it goes on and on and on. So it can absolutely help you come up with, a comprehensive prep document so you can practice. If you're the type where you need help getting started with your scripting, you can read it out loud and then work through that until it comes naturally. So AI is your friend in this situation, and we want to use it to help set us up for success. So some of your takeaway prompts that I want you to try this week, spaced out, maybe one per day. Your first one is the mock interview simulator. So here's my resume, here's my job description. You act as the interviewer and ask me one question at a time and then score it before we move on to the next. And like we talked about, you can use the tool on your phone where it's an actual conversation back and forth between you and the AI. You want to actually, the second prompt is to make sure it has a rubric to follow. We used the STAR rubric, so situation, task, action, and result, and tell me the weakest part. And then the third one is the confidence debrief. So, of all the answers that I gave today, which one was the weakest and why specifically? And ask me 2 follow up questions that would force me to strengthen that exact answer. Don't let me move on until I've had a better version out loud. So, all of these should provide you some idea of how AI can help you become really prepared and really confident to ace that interview so that you certainly get a call back and get the job that you're looking for. And if you're still struggling to actually get the interview, then go back and watch some of the previous episodes that we have. Now, for our next episode, I'm really excited. I hope that you will get more interviews. I hope that you'll ace the interview. And then we'll also be able to talk about negotiating the position. So let's say that you actually get offered the job and you want to be able to prepare with a counter offer and having exact language that set you up to get the schedule that you want or get the pay that you deserve or get the benefits that you're looking for. So how can you navigate those conversations effectively with your body language, your tone, the actual questions or research that you use? We're going to talk about how AI can help really set you up for success with that conversation. And that way, you're going to position that company to say yes to you without you ever having to threaten to walk away or take another position. We want it to be natural so that everybody gets what they want and it's a win-win and you get the job and the pay that you deserve. So next time you're given a job offer, don't forget that there is a real dollar number that's attached to staying quiet. And researchers actually measured what that number is. Could be as high as $27,000 lost. So, economists ran a real experiment on nearly 4,000 tech job seekers, and half of the group was told most people counteroffer, and most people who counteroffer at least get some of what they ask for. So that one nudge alone encouraged people to actually ask for more. So it went from 54% of people asking up to 61% of people asking. And the people who did have a counter offer, a counter ask, walked away with about 12.5% more compensation than the other group. So for this group, this job role specifically, that averaged out to about $27,000 a year that was left on the table by the people who simply said nothing and didn't even ask. So ask ourselves, why did that other half stay quiet? Almost always the answer is the same. It's fear. It's, what if they pull the offer? What if they say no? It feels like a big risk in the whole process because you were finally given an offer for your dream job. You don't want it to fall away now just because you asked for more money or you advocated for yourself. So last year, researchers actually conducted 7 studies on this fear specifically. And in every study, candidates greatly overestimated the chance that negotiating would cause an employer to withdraw the offer. Hiring managers reported that they rarely actually did that. So candidates thought that negotiating was much more likely to cost them the offer than the hiring managers actually said that it would cost them. So I've been a hiring manager and I've been a potential employee on the asking end many times. So throughout this presentation, I'll share a little bit of my insight and personal best practices. But tonight specifically is the final episode of our series about AI and your career and how you can use AI to level up your job search. This is the one where everything that you've worked towards and everything that you've built pays off. So we're actually going to research the real number that you should use with AI. We're going to understand the two different psychological forces that actually decide who gets more, which candidate gets more. We're going to draft a counter offer that will actually get you a yes instead of a no, or maybe later. And I would love to know from you all here, have you ever actually negotiated a job offer before? Is this something that you fall in the camp of afraid to do? Have you tried and been told no? Have you done it and got the yes? Let me know where you fall in this category, because it is absolutely a critical aspect of your job search. You want to make sure when you finally land that job that you're getting what you deserve. So welcome back to the Vitality Social Network. If you're new here, my name is Melon, and this is episode 5, the final episode of AI in your career. Let's just recap where we've been so far and what we've learned. So for episode 1, you were able to learn how to find the right roles and research companies, make sure that the job is actually a good fit for you or you're a good fit for the job. In episode 2, you were able to build a resume that gets through the ATS, the applicant tracking system that ranks everyone, so that you're actually able to get in front of that hiring manager who will actually be able to view your application. Episode 3 is about creating a cover letter that sounds like you and is personalized and humanized, not just a template that, the hiring manager will glaze over because they've all looked the same. And then episode 4, you were able to build a real feedback loop so you can walk into the interview once you actually secured that interview based on your great cover letter, your great resume. And that way we wanted you to walk into it prepared and ready to ace that interview. So every single one of those episodes was about getting the offer. And here we are, we made it. You were given an offer, and now we want to teach you how you can actually negotiate that offer. So tonight is about not leaving money on the table once you have that offer. And like we talked about, most people are leaving money on the table. 58% of job seekers just accept the very first number that they're offered with no pushback at all. Meanwhile, 73% of employers openly say that they expect you to negotiate. And a separate survey of hiring managers found that 89% of companies are genuinely open to it. So not only do they expect it, but they're ready for it, they're open to it. The door is standing wide open, wanting you to walk through it, but most people just never do. Like I said before, I've been a hiring manager, and I go in with my best offer that I think is reasonable for the candidate and for the company and comparable to what everyone else on my team is making. I try to be a fair hiring manager. So every now and then, maybe I will say no, but usually I'm prepared for that person to come back and say, no, I am worth more than that. My time, my experience, my energy is worth more than that. And I know because I've read their resume, where they fall in line. And when they give me a counter offer, I'm ready to either agree to it or to meet in the middle. I have a range that my employer, my boss, my supervisor above me has given me that I'm allowed to work within. Sometimes I start at the highest end of the range because I really want that person and that's all I can reasonably do. But most of the time, I'm falling somewhere in the middle and I'm ready for that counteroffer. I do know many employers that actually treat this very differently than I do. They're not giving you a fair number at all. They're walking in at the lowest thing they could possibly give you, because if you say yes and you don't even ask for anything different, then they're taking advantage of you. They're ready to give you a lower pay compared to the person that has, worked there for a year or 5 years or walks in next week and negotiates. They don't mind making that little extra money off of your back, but they do have a range as well. If that person's going to push back and they really want to keep them, they're prepared to fight for them. So you just have to understand the values of the company that you're applying for. You have to understand what you're worth. You have to understand the market and what is actually a comparable range that you could get at the same job next door. You have to know how to give a reasonable counteroffer that gives you credit for what you're worth and is comparable to the market. So we're going to talk about how we can do that today. So we're going to cover a few things tonight. So first, there are two psychological forces that decide who gets the higher salary We'll talk about 5 rules for researching your real market number with AI. We're going to do a live demo. So this is how to actually use AI to build the number that you're going to pitch. We'll do this together on the stream. We're going to do our signature real or hype segment on whether negotiating actually does or does not put your offer at risk. And then we'll also do a live demo drafting the counteroffer email itself. So to close out, again, we're going to talk about this for maybe the next 45 minutes or so, but to close out, you'll have 3 clear prompts that you can take away and run yourself in order to prepare for when you get that offer letter. So to begin, there are exactly 2 things that decide how a salary negotiation ends, and almost nobody prepares for either of them on purpose. So the first is a strategy called anchoring. Decades of negotiation research all point to the same finding, which is whoever names a real number first tends to pull the entire conversation towards that number, whether they mean to or not, okay? So that's why when you walk into a conversation with no number prepared, no number that you're ready to pitch or to ask for, the employer's first offer becomes your anchor. And then you start negotiating from their number instead of from your number that you want. And so the fix here is not really complicated. It's having your own well-researched number ready before the conversation ever even starts. So if you're asked first, then, what do you want to make? What do you think is fair for this position? If you're asked the question, then you're not guessing. You're putting out a number that is well researched and is likely to get a yes. If they go first, then you already know exactly how the number that they offers you compares to reality, compares to the job next door, compares to what you were wanting to ask for in your head. So you need to go in with that number in mind, and if you can, be the first one to pitch the number that you're looking for. The second strategy is your BATNA. This is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This idea comes from the negotiation program at Harvard, actually, and it's pretty simple. So, your leverage in any negotiation is not about how much you want the job, it's about how good your next best option is. If this deal falls through, is there another offer on the table that you're choosing between? Is it that you're going to just stay in your current role? Is it going to be that you are confidently able to spend more time searching for the right job because your savings is adequate? You're not desperate to say yes right now. The point is not to threaten anyone with this information, but it's that knowing your answer to what happens if I say no, what happens if they say no, what happens if I lose this offer. That's what lets you ask calmly and confidently instead of anxiously accepting the first thing that they say. You need to be ready with what is my reasonable best alternative? What is my next option if this one doesn't work out? And that gives you a confident place to come from. AI's job tonight is to help build both of these for you before you ever even speak to a recruiter. So we're going to help you find a real source number for the anchor and a clear picture of your actual alternatives for the BATNA. So let's build the anchor first. But first, let's do a quick check-in, see who's here. Yes, let me know if you're here, what is your dream job? Or what is your dream salary for that job? I would love to consider along the same career path that I've been reaching for and shoot well over 6 figures. I'm sure we all want that. So I am in this phase of my job search of trying to understand what is a reasonable salary based on my decade of experience, based on the other jobs and positions that I've held, based on what the market is looking for right now in my city or in the next larger city over. So we need to understand these concepts and consider how we can apply them. So while I'm searching through this information, I'm wanting to share that with you all too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because there are 5 rules for researching your number specifically. So let's make sure we're on the same page with what goes into this when we're considering our number, our anchor number that we're going to walk in with. So these are the 5 rules that separate a defensible number from just a guess that you pulled out of thin air, okay? So the first one is to triangulate at least 3 sources. You should never trust the first number that you find from one site. You need to cross check a market data tool, a couple of actual job postings, especially in pay transparent states. And then you can do an AI synthesis of all of that. So if you have 3 sources shooting around the same target, then you can agree on a real number. One source is just a guess. So you do need to triangulate at least 3 sources. And it helps when you're having these conversations and prompts with AI to either provide those sources, or when it provides you its first best guess, to push back a little bit to dig deeper on where did these sources come from? Is it relevant to my local area? Is it current to this year and time? How are we actually getting this information and making sure that it's relevant to me? Then your second rule. So match every specific part of the job. So not just the title. Title alone is not enough. You need to also match the location of the job, years of experience that you have, the company size, company stage, all of these factors that we're mentioning here can move the needle on the number, sometimes by a little and sometimes by a lot. So a generic search for your job title alone will lie to you. So that's an example of when you're looking for a specific number from several sources, how you can get specific to the exact job or the exact company or the responsibilities of the job. Rule 3 is to ask for total compensation, not just base salary. This is super important. For one reason alone, I actually know of an employer that posts the total compensation on the job ad, but when you start digging a little bit deeper, you realize that the base salary is much lower and they're including your annual bonuses based on performance, or they're including the fact that they pay for your malpractice insurance in the healthcare industry, or they're including the pay time off that they offer you. So you need to have clarity on what the total compensation is, and from both ends of that, because sometimes it could be the case that the base salary is all that they're showing, it is all that they're offering you, but when you dig a little bit deeper or push or ask for a little bit more, they could also give you, paid health care, paid time off, equity, a sign-on bonus. And these benefits are the rest of the number that can go into your decision making process. A lower base with strong equity or strong performance based bonuses, where you get a percentage of the revenue, that can beat sometimes a higher base salary with none of those extras added on, but only if you compare the whole package. So you do have to have an understanding of what goes into it and what you value. I'm someone that values a performance based bonus. I know that if you give me a percent of the revenue, I will work hard to grow the company and shoot for the stars, and that I will be more likely to get the money that I deserve. I'll be well compensated based on that, versus if you give me a fixed salary and no bonus, I feel like there's money being left on the table there. Rule 4 is to build a range, and you want your range to be anchored high but defensible. So, not just one number, a range, and your real target is somewhere towards the top. So, when you anchor high inside a range, you can actually justify with your sources, your experience, what the research is telling you to do. This is going to be more likely to get you towards the number that you actually want and that you're actually worth. And then rule number 5, write the number down before the call, before the offer, so that you're not trying to decide live under pressure. And then this is how people accidentally lowball themselves, because they're not confident, they're not prepared, and they potentially accept the first thing that is offered to them because they're on the phone, they're under pressure, they're afraid to say, "Can I consider this and think it over and then get back to you by the end of the week?" And even better, they're not prepared to say, I really appreciate that offer. I feel like it's generous, but based on my decade of experience and my research into the market, I actually feel like this number would be more reasonable. Or I actually feel like that as a base plus bonuses would be more reasonable for my experience. So if you consider these 5 rules, which one of them have you skipped before? You can drop a number 1 through 5 in the comments, whether you're here live or you're on the replay. I would love to know if this is something that you've actually tried before. Is this new to you? Are you already confident going in, preparing to negotiate your salary? I hope that if you're here, you're going to try all 5 of these rules the next time that you're offered that job. So let's start talking about how we can actually build your number live. So I'm going to share the next screen of ChatGPT here. I provided some demo information for the prompt. So this could be how you provide in advance the job title, the company size, how much experience that you have, etc. The more information that you can plug into your AI tool, the better. And let them know that you're evaluating the job offer at that company and the relevant information you have. And then you want them to research current total compensation for this role. So again, the total compensation is your base salary, the typical bonus, equity if applicable. So you want them to give you a defensible range with your reasoning. Flag how confident you are in each number and tell me what additional detail would sharpen the estimate. So let's see what ChatGPT has to say here. I also included at the bottom for them to use current identifiable sources, because that's an example of something that we might need to push a little bit harder on to make sure they're not giving us something that's out of date. I've also shown you before in the top left corner here, you can switch where it says ChatGPT. You can switch from the auto instant answers to the version of the tool that thinks a little bit more deeply about this. And when you switch to the thinking version of the tool, it takes time to dig into the research and provide a more thorough answer. It's also a better version of the tool if you want it to give you like a spreadsheet or a document or anything like that in response. So let's see what we've got here. Offer evaluation. Bottom line, for a Charlotte-based, so that's Charlotte, North Carolina, it's a pretty large city, learning and development manager with 7 years of experience, responsibility for 3 training specialists, and an enterprise-wide training scope across multiple locations, they would estimate a defensible range between $100,000 to $120,000. So you might actually, at that point, want to shoot for $110,000 to $115,000, a little bit higher on the range. Target annual bonus between 5 and 10%. So again, maybe you're shooting for 7 to 8%. And then your target cash compensation, and then your equity or long-term incentives. And so it shows here equity or long-term incentives, usually none at this level, or maybe a small, modest retention award based on your bonuses. So that's a great example to know, because if you see a job offer that beats this, then it can tell you that's worth accepting, because it's actually comparable and competitive to what's normally going on for this specific job. And so the job that I was offered for my example is at $92,000 base with a 5% bonus. So the maximum annual cash compensation is approximately around $97K, okay? And so that places the offer below the estimated market midpoint, near the lower end of the broader Charlotte market. And it's not necessarily an absurdly low offer, but it is absolutely a negotiation worthy offer. So this is telling you right now that they are lowballing you. They're hoping that you'll say, wow, that's actually a little bit better than my last job, and I've never made close to six figures. I'm a little afraid to ask for that because I don't want them to push back or say no or give this job to someone else. So I'm just going to take that 92 and 5% bonus and be happy with what they offered me, instead of pushing back and realizing, like, no, based on your experience and based on what is normally offered for this level of responsibility, I can confidently ask for that 100K. And in fact, I should shoot a little bit higher than that and let them come back for me and meet in the middle. You know, maybe if I shot right for 115, then they say 105. And look, you just made yourself 10 grand just by asking a question instead of saying yes to the first thing that was offered to you. And then it did provide me some comparable benchmarks. So it showed that it did validate this information that was provided here and compared it to your relevant experience. So this just shows you the example of when you put it on the thinking mode, you get a lot more detail about what actually went into that determination. And it also shares details that would sharpen the estimate here. So the most valuable additional information would be things like the ownership structure. You know, is this a publicly traded company, or is it nonprofit? Is it privately held? What's the exact organizational reach? Do they have retirement benefits or other benefits like that? So that helps you consider a well-rounded version of this job offer. So notice how just by doing this one prompt, you now have a number that you can defend out loud in your own words and have several specific reasons attached. So it's not just the figure that you saw once on a website, but you have pretty thorough detail on why this is a competitive ask or competitive offer based on your specific job market. So I would love to know from you guys right now, honestly, 0 to 10, how confident do you feel right now asking for more money than you're offered? So a similar question to before, maybe a little bit different. Maybe another question is, how confident would you be asking right now for more money than you make? Would you be willing to go to your boss and say, hey, I realized that based on the market and competitive jobs and my value and years of experience at the company, I actually deserve a raise. And beyond that, I don't just deserve a raise, I deserve a compensation reevaluation for my entire structure. I deserve to reevaluate my base salary and my bonus structure based on my level of experience and what I provide to your company. And what's the worst that they can say? No? I mean, you might as well ask. And then what's the next question is, well, could we have that conversation as part of my annual review process? I would love to hear what I could do to do better, or what you think I'm providing to the company in terms of my value, and how we could potentially work towards additional compensation. That's a great question. And then, like we talked about before, what is it that gives you that confidence? We talked about your anchor, your realistic number. We also talked about the BAFTA. So basically, your best alternative. Are you prepared to say, I actually have another job offer that's offering me more money right now? I could make more money at the company next door, but I love this company. I've poured in 10 years of my life here, and I really value the mission, and I'm an expert at managing people within this realm, within this company, and I want to keep providing my best to you all, but I do need to make sure that I can take care of my family or achieve my personal goals. Is there anything you could do to work with me so that I can stay with you instead of the company next door? Are you prepared to have a best alternative? Sometimes that is your leverage. Even if you don't intend to leave, you need to start applying and having those conversations and considerations just to make yourself a little bit more competitive. So, if you've ranked yourself lowly on the confidence level, whether you're here live thinking, watching along, or you're on the replay, thank you. But if you rated yourself lowly, not very confident, We're going to talk about today's real or hype segment and the biggest reason that can remove any low rankings that should help you be more confident, okay? So tonight's claim is if you negotiate your offer, there's a real risk that the company just pulls it away from you. That's the claim. So is this real or hype? What do you think? The verdict is actually that it's mostly hype. And the research on this is unusually direct. So, across 7 separate studies, researchers found that candidates consistently overestimate how likely negotiating is to blow up a deal compared to what the hiring managers on the other side actually report. So, a separate survey of hundreds of US employers found 89% are open to negotiating after they've already made an offer. Remember that? So, most people are willing. And a compiled analysis of negotiated offers found that 94% stayed completely intact after the candidate countered. So, that's almost everyone. It was actually very rare. In other terms, it was very rare for someone to completely pull an offer off the table and say, you know what, I no longer want to give you this job because of you counteroffered, okay? Oh. Now, there is a couple parts that are real that we need to consider because asking is not the landmine that it feels like, but there is a real pattern behind the rare cases where it does go wrong. Negotiating for its own sake, with no research behind the number, delivered in a demanding tone, that is certainly an exception. And it's also exactly what tonight's method avoids because you're walking in with a source number and a respectful, reasonable, research based ask. You're not just going in and saying, I deserve 10 times more than that. What's wrong with you? How dare you offer me less than that? Do you even know who I am? You're not going in with a tone that you necessarily disrespect their offer, okay? But you just know what you deserve and what is reasonable. But here's the part that's real. So it's worth sitting with this that women are not negotiating less than you'd think. Recent data actually shows that women make up over half of everyone who negotiates. But the gap shows up somewhere else, which is that in one large survey, women who asked were more likely to simply be told no and be given the original number anyways. So 38% versus 31% for men. So a higher percentage of women were simply told no. Decades of research trace part of that gap to a real social penalty. Women who negotiate assertively, I deserve this, are sometimes rated as less likable by evaluators. And that's a bias that men who do the exact same thing don't face nearly as often. There is a documented fix, though, and it's simple, which is framing your ask with a clear, legitimate reason. So, again, it's not walking in a demanding tone, but it's understanding your value or understanding the value of the position. Say, I understand and appreciate that offer. Did you know that in my last company, I was able to open a brand new location and achieve profitability in the first month? I would really love to bring my skills to the table and help your company achieve the same thing, but I need to be compensated appropriately for that experience and for the skills that I know that I bring. Is there any way that you'd be able to budge on that offer just a little bit, maybe bring it up 5%? That would really get me excited and motivated to perform well at this job. It would really help me feel valued. There's a way to say that appropriately. So it's not a workaround to do that or to acknowledge their position. It's just good negotiating for everybody. And it's the exact structure that we've been talking about and that we're going to put into the counteroffer email that we're going to talk about today. I also want to share, while I get this pulled up, I know that the instant recession fear is hype, okay? And sometimes the uneven way certain asks get received is real, but it is fixable with the right framing. I also want to let you know sometimes things don't go quite the way that you expect, and so it does help to just ask. When I got my last position, I asked for a number that I felt like was shooting way above what they could reasonably afford or offer me, but it was much closer to what I deserved than what they were offering me. And it was close to probably double what they were offering me. That's a large jump. You know, it's not increasing by 10% or something. It was double what they offered me. But I knew my value. They knew my value. They knew where I was coming from and what I was capable of in my last position. And so they said yes. And then a couple of weeks later, they came back to me and said, well, we might have overshot with that initial yes. In order to keep the number of hours that we have you working, I actually need to consider if you're willing to step down just a little bit of a notch and meet me more in the middle. So that was interesting. It was one of the first times that I had got exactly what I asked for, which was way overshooting. But when they came back to me and brought it down just a little bit, I had two ways I could go. I could say, I understand where you're coming from. Let me counteroffer again. Let me stand and fight for what I know I deserve. Or let me keep my hours, let me keep my position and show you what I'm worth. And I tend to go that route. I still felt like what they were offering was fair for the job. It was fair compared to the market. And so I was willing to keep my hours and keep what they were offering me and then show them over time. Let me prove to you why I'm worth that higher number through the work that I do, and then we'll have a performance-based conversation. So sometimes it's not always discussed right at the beginning. Sometimes it's discussed later on. Sometimes things change later on. So you do have to be prepared to be flexible in these conversations. But for the first conversation, I'm going to show you how we can do our initial counteroffer, and we are going to do that through email. So a lot of the times people will actually receive their initial offer via email. They say, okay, let's think about this, and I'll follow up with an offer letter, and we're going to pitch, your job and your benefits package and your total salary. And then you can be prepared on how you're going to counteroffer through email as well. Now, we also want to recommend this because, frankly, if you're trying to pitch over the phone, that's an entirely separate skill that we have. Sometimes you have to worry about your confidence, your tone, what they're going to say if they say no. There's a lot more back and forth that can happen. So you can take some of the basic concepts that we're discussing here from the email, but we're going to start with the email draft. So draft a counter offer email that asks for my base salary that we agreed on was more comparable to the market rate, gives a clear, legitimate reason for requesting this using the market range and my experience. It expresses genuine enthusiasm, so we don't want to come across as rude or dismissive. We want to tell them how excited we are, how thankful we are. And we acknowledge the company's offer and position, but has a direct but warm question about their flexibility in the offer. And we're going to keep it short and sweet, under 150 words. We don't want to do several paragraphs long or anything. So let's see what ChatGPT is able to offer. I did also provide them the initial information about the job. So they say, thank you so much for the offer and for the opportunity to join your company in this position. I'm genuinely so excited about the role and the chance to contribute to your growing team. But after reviewing the offer, I wanted to ask whether there's any flexibility on the base salary. Based on my research, comparable positions like this one are typically closer to the $100,000 to $112,000 range. And with my 8 years of experience in this role, I believe a base salary of $108,000 would be better reflective of the market and the value that I can bring. I appreciate your consideration and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. So, short and sweet, but overall pleasant and direct. And again, this is something that you are able to say via phone call as well if you need to. So ChatGPT can help you with that initial script to build your confidence. So when you get that call with your initial offer, you're not put on the spot to just say, yes, thank you, I would love that. You know what your anchor number is. You know what your other reasonable offer is. You know what you can counter with and what you're worth. And you're able to do that. Or, like we said, you're able to say, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate this offer. I need a moment to consider if I'd like to move forward, and then I'll get back to you. And then you can send this email, or then you can follow up with a phone call. I would love to know if any of you have ever tried this before, if you have gone the route of sending a counter offer via email, or if you've handled this successfully on the phone. What do you think works better? What has been a success story for you? I would love to know. I've gotten a few questions about this that I feel like would be a good time to address. So let's go ahead and do that now. And if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to let me know and I'll be sure to address those too. So first, what if I don't actually have a best alternative offer, a competing offer? Do I actually have any leverage at all? And yes, of course you do. Of course you do. Your best alternative offer does not have to be another offer, okay? Your best alternative can be staying in your current role. I'm going to stay with the company that I'm at, actually. Or I'm going to spend more time searching for a job that is honoring the pay that I deserve. You know, right? I'm going to look a little bit further for a job that's a better fit for what I need. Or maybe you have a number that is backed by real data, and that data is your leverage. Independent of whether you have a second offer in your hand or not, you know what a good number looks like and you know what you're worth. So you can still confidently use that as leverage. Another question is, should I negotiate the benefits, the PTO, or just the base salary? And first, it kind of depends on what your priority is, but you do want to look at it as a whole package, not just the headlining number. If they're firm on that base number, then that is the time to ask about if can you do a sign-on bonus, can you be flexible with your PTO or with your bonus structure or my start date. Companies often have more flexibility outside of the base salary than in it, so if they stand their ground on that base number, that's your time to look outside of it a little bit. And then what if they just say, nope, this is our final offer, take it. We'll take that seriously, but you can still ask one more time, once specifically. I understand, but is there any flexibility on the one thing that matters most to you? Maybe that is the PTO, the paid days off. Maybe it is the bonus structure. One respectful ask rarely is going to cost you anything. Again, the least they can do is say no, and then you get to decide if you're going to take the offer or leave it. And I know that makes some people a little bit uncomfortable, because what if you're like, oh, I don't like conflict. I definitely would like to do this without all the uncomfortable back and forth. And that's exactly what the email format is for. So you don't have to negotiate live on the phone if that's not your strength. A clear, warm, well-reasoned email will accomplish the same exact thing without the improvisation. So that's why it's the time to do that if you're not comfortable with those skills yet on the phone. And then I would just love to recap. So this is the last episode of this series. I hope by now you have learned from episode 1 how you find the right role for you. From episode 2 and 3, you got your resume and your cover letter on point, and that's what helped you actually get the conversation with the hiring manager. And episode 4 helped you ace that interview. And then now you want to make sure that the number attached to all of that work is the right one. So none of this conversation was separate. It was always one system that comes together. I do want to leave you with 3 prompts that you can use. So these are your takeaways. Let me go ahead and share the screen for that. So if you want, you can go ahead and screenshot and save this information. You're able to maybe like copy and paste the text and post it right into your AI tool. I definitely recommend watching the whole series to have a better understanding of how to use AI to get your job, get the right job, get the interview, succeed at the interview, and then, definitely at this point, make sure that you get the pay that you're worth. But you can also take it piece by piece based on the episode that is most relevant to the skill that you need. So they absolutely build on each other, but you can take and pick and choose the information that is most helpful to you. At this point, when you're considering how you're actually going to negotiate your offer, these are the three prompts that you'll use in order to partner with AI to get that specific offer that you deserve. So the first one is best for knowing that real number before any conversation and having that strong anchor. You know what you're going to walk in as your first pitch or your first ask. The second prompt is best for writing your strong counter offer with the right tone, keeping it concise, keeping it effective. And then the third prompt is the objection rehearsal. So this will help you practice for those real life objections, building in confidence into your replies and holding your ground, because often they are going to give you at least one pushback, right? I think that's a great question. What about the rejection? So I would love to know if you mean you were not given an offer at all, or if they reject your counteroffer or your pitch for the salary that you'd like. Because in either case, this can help you confidently pitch yourself. I would say if your question is about rejection, like you've had the interview and they decided they're going to move forward with different candidates, it's absolutely a great idea to reach out and ask the question, is there anything that I could have done to stand out above the other candidates? Would you mind giving me a little bit of insight into the candidate that you chose and why you chose to move forward with that candidate? Does not hurt to ask the question and try to understand how you could be more competitive or more successful in your next interview. But if you're referring to the rejection, the rejection about your salary expectations, then that's what this third prompt is for. So what you'll do is copy and paste maybe the email or what they said to you when they responded to your counteroffer and said no. And then this way they can help you practice exactly what to say out loud. So respond the way a real person might. So this one actually specifically, you can put your email in and say, tell me what a hiring manager might say. Let me be prepared for those objections before you even get one. You can be prepared. You can use this prompt. And that way you can confidently be ready to say, well, I understand and I appreciate you raising it a little bit higher, or I appreciate you considering my ask, but did you know that the current market rate is this number? Or have you considered that I have 10 years of experience and my prior success in the role? Be prepared to stand on the why behind the number that you asked for in the first place. And again, it doesn't hurt to ask that question. Do you have any flexibility? Like, what can you offer me is almost the question. Are you allowed to be flexible on that? Sometimes you just have to ask the question, is there any flexibility allowed that you could go up on this offer? But, be ready to stand your ground in those things that we learned, like where these numbers came from. They weren't a guess. They weren't like random out of thin air. It was based on the research that we've done. So you can confidently stand on that, or you can stand on your next best offer, like we talked about. Maybe you're saying, well, I really was excited to work for this company and bring my skills to the table so I can help you succeed. But I really need to make sure that I can confidently continue paying my bills or reaching my personal goals and being paid the value that I'm worth, that I know I can at this company, right? So let's see. You have had the answer ready before even asked the question. You seem to have prepared the episode well. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think about these topics a lot because I've been in both positions. I've been in the position of a hiring manager having to have these conversations. I've also been in the position of needing a job and like trying to learn how I could be more effective, how I can present myself better, and trying to learn as much as I can about these topics. I also have an amazing team that helps me prepare as well. And so thank you so much to anybody who's here watching, anybody who supports me in any way. I appreciate you all so much. And we have a wonderful little community actually. So if you're interested in being a part of it, I would absolutely invite you to join our Discord. So we have a community of people that are part of this live streaming network. They want to share information that they're passionate about with the world. And we also have a little group for our evening conversation about how to use AI to get a job or be more productive in our lives. So if you're interested in being part of that, then please join us. And we can always keep the conversation going. So you're more than welcome to message the group for support, or you can DM me directly after the stream. I would love to help you however I can. That's just kind of my goal in life. I want to be able to share any knowledge that I have to help other people. So we can all be successful, we can all be happy, we can all get the job and the money that we deserve. That's what life should be, right? So feel free to meet me there. If you want to talk after this, you can also potentially maybe pitch any ideas that you have for how we could keep the conversation going, or what else you want to learn to use AI for to make your life more productive. So I would love to have you there. But that's all we have for today. So thank you everybody who joined the stream and who posted something in the chat or asked questions or liked it. The likes are definitely a vote for, like, you like my content, you want me to keep doing this, and I really appreciate all of that engagement so much. So thank you to everybody, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your night, and we'll see you later. I'll see you. My next stream is Wednesday morning for my morning productivity series, but we have a few other hosts that'll be around as well. So tomorrow there's a series about songwriting and making music, and that guy's a lot of fun. So I look forward to having you all there and seeing you next time. So take care. Bye, everybody.